Gentlemen, what is the day of the week?
Today would be a football Friday, good sir.
Today would indeed be a football Friday. What day of the month is it?
It's the 13th.
Do you believe in Friday the 13th?
I don't know if I do. In fact, you know what? I don't. I'm just going to, and I believe in conspiracy theories, some of them at least, but I'm not going to fall into the trap of December the 13th.
We got 3 hours here. We could go down a lot of rabbit holes.
Well, we probably could. I'm sure that might be better for Nigel and Hammer over on IBC. I'm kidding, of course. How you doing this morning? What you got for me? It's the 13th. Let's go.
Yeah, I am. I'm not a believer in Friday the 13th.
I didn't think you probably were.
I mean, how can you not be fired up right now? You got the game of the year for the Colts and Broncos coming up in a little over 48 hours. We'll break it all down for you. Mike Sanford from out there in Denver going to join us coming up 9 o'clock hour. In some way, form, fashion, the last 2 weeks, Andy, we've talked about it, and it's finally here. Again, from a health standpoint, I think the Colts are fairly healthy coming into this game, and I think there are a lot of little different paths that this game could go down. I think both teams have some similarities, frankly, in terms of their young quarterbacks and haven't really beaten anybody. If you look at their schedule, both of these teams.
Agreed.
Defensively, Denver certainly has had a really, really stout unit, but I just can't wait to get here because I think it's such a pivotal game in starting to get to the how do you kind of summarize the non-Anthony Richardson elements to this season.
Yeah, well, I mean, we talk so much about Anthony Richardson. I mean, isn't that the number one? I mean, we've done this how many times? Like, I remember, there's a game earlier in the year where we were like, is this his second game he's ever played outside? Like, we've had those conversations because Anthony Richardson last year with what happened with the injury, a little bit of injuries this year, of course, and the benching. So, for me, it's great experience in the game of the season if you're Anthony Richardson. And then for the team as a whole, what did you learn from last year? I mean, last year, this team had a couple different opportunities to lock themselves in to the playoffs. You think of the road game against the backup quarterback in Cincinnati last year. You think of the debacle against Tyler Heineke, however the hell you say his name, last year in Atlanta. And then, of course, what happened with the Houston Texans in the final week of the season. This is one of those games, and it probably mirrors a little bit more of the Texans game last year than Atlanta or Cincinnati. But what have they learned in those games? And, listen, Denver is a beatable team. This is a team that is better than the Colts, but not that much better. And so does this game look more like the Lions game, where it's a close game for a while, but you don't really feel good about the Colts? Or can the Colts keep it close, do enough to keep it close and give themselves an opportunity at the end? We've seen them do that against the Jets and the Patriots, and that's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm waiting for on Sunday afternoon.
There's a part of the Colts that I thought would be really, really good, borderline elite, if I can use that word, this season, and I don't think it's gotten to that level yet, and I'm curious if post-bye week we start to see that.
Okay.
What wrinkles? You and I have both said that at different times this week. What wrinkles are out of the bye week? I mean, I could see Shane Steichen foaming at the mouth during the bye week, imagining saying, oh, wow, we've showed this on film for the last 3 weeks? All right, let's zig and now let's zag. And exactly what does that look like? And obviously Denver's in the same position with them exiting their bye week as well. So we'll get you set on that. The Pacers are in Philly tonight. When you think of Friday the 13th, that's probably how Miles Turner thinks of facing Joel Embiid.
Yeah, good luck.
I've said this quite often.
When does he get 2 fouls?
JMV is not too happy when I say this.
Oh,
but
boy.
Joel Embiid has been Miles Turner's daddy, which I don't use that word lightly.
You emphasized the daddy there.
I did.
Yeah, you really drove it home.
Can I clarify what I mean by that?
You can do whatever you want, sure.
Joel Embiid, exceptional basketball player, correct?
Yes, when he's out there, he's a very good basketball player, of course.
You don't need to throw the caveat of
he's
health.
A very good. He's 35-15 tonight, if we're not mistaken.
He has averaged more points against the Pacers than any other team in the Eastern Conference in his career. So when I say, why is he Miles Turner in particular and the Pacers' daddy? That is exactly why. No team in the East he averages more points against than the Indiana Pacers. 31-11. That is his averages over his career against this team, and it looks like they are healthy from a Maxey, Paul George standpoint. The Pacers 5, 6.5 point underdog, something right around there. tonight in Philly, and then they will have the Pelicans coming up on Sunday.
Yeah, it was. I think it opened at 5.5 and it moved to 6.5. You know, for me with the Pacers, we'll talk about this coming up at 7:35 when we talk about the Colts as well. But you know, for me, I have low confidence in them winning tonight. But I will say overall, can they use this week and a half off? And it's not apples to apples, okay? But you know, the fever went on was it basically a month off, was it not, in the middle of the season? It was basically a month, was it not? 4 weeks with the Olympic stoppage. And, you know, they got to rest, and they came back, and they won, 7 or 8 in a row, and they were a much different team after that elongated break. It's not the same. I get it. But can the Pacers look different? They looked defeated, bad body language, and then, you know, just not to mention effort and poor play on top of it. Can they look different? Is the effort, is the body language, some of the things that you actually can control? You're not going to make every shot. Can that be different? And for me, we'll talk about it as we go. I know he is an unselfish player. I know he is hey, we need to set things up. But it is now time, as we have moved into, you know, basically starting to get into the middle of the season now in the NBA. It is time that Tyrese Halliburton flat out plays like the best player on this team. It can't be 17 a game. It needs to be 23 or 24 a game until guys come back, until reinforcements arrive, until guys, as they would say, get off the schneid. I need Tyrese Halliburton to play like the max level player that was all NBA last year, that was on Team USA last year. So I'm not sure it's tonight, but they're going to have to stay afloat and pick up some wins. And I don't know. Maybe it does start tonight. And maybe I'm giving the Sixers, quite frankly, too much credit. Maybe that's the case.
They have won 4 or 5. And again, with Embiid, Paul George, and Maxey, they're a much different team. They're 7-15 on the year. So if you look at the record, you're like, well, they're terrible. Well, I mean, obviously,
there's context.
They've had some personnel issues around that. The Pacers did lose to them earlier in the year without Paul George and Joel Embiid. Also, your viewing interest tonight, Indiana basketball fans. It'll be the first Big Ten road game, I should say, of the year. You want to talk about somebody that's been your daddy. Nebraska was that last year. Never good when Nebraska basketball is your daddy.
Yeah, but the guy's gone. Our guy's gone.
Well, I mean, am I wrong?
Tamanaga?
They still were Indiana's daddy last year. Nebraska absolutely dusted Indiana last season, wherever the game was.
Remember, he's in threes, talking junk to Assembly Hall.
Yeah, Keisei Tominaga, the
that's
Japanese
my guy.
buddy healed, is gone. So is Rink Mast, who has had some big games last year as well. He had a medical red shirt for the season. I was surprised to see Indiana as a 3.5-point underdog in this one.
Why is that?
I don't know. Nebraska's schedule hasn't blown me away so far
it hasn't. No. I mean, you're right.
I thought it'd be like very close to a pick 'em, and I get that 3.5 points is not a lot.
It's up to 4.5, by the way.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well,
it's went up a point.
Maybe
the last couple hours
knows more than I. And again, the Indy Classic tomorrow over at Gamebridge Fieldhouse. You got Purdue and A&M coming up at noon. We'll see if Purdue can handle the pressure of not only Texas A&M tomorrow, but Auburn a week from Saturday. In their final, certainly big non-conference games of the year, and then Butler, Wisconsin at 2:30.
Yeah, well, given that Greg Gard and Wisconsin and Buzz Williams and Texas A&M didn't have 5 to 8 minutes for us on the air, I'm hoping Thad Matta and Butler, and I know they're in a bad spot right now, but I hope Thad Matta and Butler and Matt Painter and Purdue beat the absolute you-know-what out of those two teams. Is that okay to say? I don't want to do the full they can kiss my ass, but I'm very close.
You got the radio spite hate going on
You know
there.
what? If I can't have radio spite, what good am I?
You're gonna
what good are we?
Sitting in section 114 tomorrow yelling down at him. You don't have time for terrestrial radio. How
dare you not have time for FM radio? Come on, we're on YouTube and stream. Come on, Buzz Williams.
Is that going to be me yelling at Kurt Signetti a week from tonight? You know, we are the flagship station, and you can't. You know, Tom Allen came on Jake and Jimmy's show every week.
Every week.
Shout out to Kurt Signetti, Home Depot Coach of the Year winner last night. Do they still do the award show?
I think they do.
Because I was all in on Notre Dame UConn women last night.
You and Kurt Darling, look at you guys. Look at you guys.
Anna Hidalgo, outstanding. She is an exceptional basketball player. Marcus Freeman, front row with his daughter last night. I mean, Geno losing, we all can celebrate that,
I mean, we can celebrate, but Marcus Freeman, I mean, what are we doing? Go watch some film. I mean, how do you think you have 2 hours?
I said,
what are we
Maddie,
doing?
I go, should he be watching film or should he be hanging with his daughter? And he said, 1,000% hanging with his daughter.
Okay. Oh, goodness. So you know what Signetti's not doing right now? Hanging out with his daughter. You know what he's doing? He's watching film somewhere. Smoking a cigarette, watching film in his recliner. That's what he's doing.
An early weather look to next Friday night.
I haven't done this. Let me guess. 28 degrees and just cold. That's going to be my guess.
Well, the
just
thing
cold.
that is the misconception is, you'll see this, a high of 34 or something right now this time of year. And it's like, well, sure, at 2 o'clock when the sun is at its peak, maybe.
Yeah, 2 o'clock in the
afternoon. On a winter
afternoon.
day. And, the sun goes down at 4:48 p.m.
Yeah, we're in bed by 9 o'clock.
Walk outside at 9 p.m. and feel what it's like. So this is, if the game was tonight at 8 o'clock, okay?
Oh, boy.
On the thermometer, it would say 20 degrees. Feel like 9.
The wind chill. Yeah, the wind chill's always the worst. That's the number.
2% precipitation on that end, which is probably an important number. Also 10 miles per hour on wind.
Well, I mean, Notre Dame can't kick a field goal anyway, so maybe that will help them. I mean, the wind only bothers one team, aren't I right? Only bothers Indiana.
Like Notre Dame wants the worst weather, right?
I think so. I think you're probably right. Well, what is it next week, or is that what it was?
That's what it is tonight.
That's what it is tonight.
If you look ahead to next week, I think it is right now looking like a similar temperature night to what we have like today. So
yeah, I'm bringing it up. It doesn't really matter. I mean, let's be honest. A week out, how right are these things? Boy,
well, every time I did it with the Indy 500, you guys would say,
well, we would laugh
at
at
it turned
you.
Out to be
it turned out to be spot on. The Indy 500 last year was the most right any weather people have ever been, unfortunately.
They were all over it.
It's the time that we cheered for them to be the most wrong ever, and unfortunately, they were spot on. All right, here's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing 23 degrees next Saturday, but there's a chance of snow.
Friday.
Or next Friday. I'm seeing there's a little bit of a chance of snow. There are some flurries mixed in around 3 o'clock. Looks like we got some wind, so we might have a little scattering of snow, maybe like we had today. And then we're going to have a little bit of wind, and it's going to be down in the 20s. It's just too bad Notre Dame couldn't get a West Coast team. Now, Arizona State, would have been perfect.
IU looked incredible in the snow against Purdue.
I say that Arizona State can run the football, so maybe that's not the case. Did you watch any last night of that dreck of a Thursday night game?
I did.
How the hell is that the game we got with those two teams?
I think I told you yesterday I have Matthew Stafford starting in fantasy football playoffs.
160 yards.
Do I just shake the hand of my opponent now?
Well, I mean, that's the problem with Thursdays is – I mean, you've had the Thursdays
paid attention to the weather. The issue is my other quarterback is Aaron Rodgers. There's no chance I could get myself to start Aaron Rodgers.
No. Who would they play this week? Not that it matters. Oh, they play the Jags. I don't know.
6 field goals last night. Thursday night football, 12-6. At one point in the third quarter, Kyle Shanahan tried to put Devondre Campbell, a linebacker, into the game. Devondre Campbell said, "I'm not going into the game."
That's great.
I guess one for Vontae Davis, if we want to dial it back a handful of years ago.
Little Antonio Brown.
Campbell headed to the locker room. So as if the 49ers have enough issues, they got dudes that don't want to go in the game.
And the thing is, it's not a topic for today, but what do they do with Brock Purdy? Like, he's going to want a deal. He can play one more year on a rookie deal, and then they can franchise tag him, and that has to be what they do, is it not? I mean, you can't pay him $40, $50 million per season, and I think he's a fine player. The Niners are kind of finished. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yeah.
Like, their window has closed.
Right.
That's a sports cliche, but it probably lives up to the sports cliche that their window is closed.
And again, I've said this now for the last couple of weeks, and I get that Mother Nature probably impacted it last night. If you are the Lions, Eagles, I don't know, whoever else you throw in that top-ish tier of the NFC, you don't want to see Matthew Stafford and that Rams team in the opening round of the playoffs.
No, you don't.
They might be a wild card. That obviously would bring them as a road team to some. I mean, can you imagine like Rams at Eagles round one? The amount of inevitable, like Nick Sirianni's got some Ryan Day type pressure on him in that first round.
Well,
think
if they win. If they win the West,
they could win the West and host.
Yeah, if they could win
Minnesota or Green Bay.
Sure. I mean, Green Bay. I mean, everyone loves Green Bay. Green Bay could be going on the road now. Right. The only positive for Green Bay would be it's an LA crowd. It would be all Packer fans.
Well, but the thing about
but still.
playing at LA is you get them in a controlled climate.
Sure. It's not 20 degrees and snowing.
If you got them in Lambeau and Philly, it'd be a little different with that passing game. So hit on that as well. I do have one Bill Belichick thought yesterday. I did watch pretty much his entire press conference.
Did you really? I like that. Do a little scouting for 2027 when he goes to South Bend?
2026.
Is it 2026?
Notre Dame goes there. 2027 is when he goes to Ross Aid.
Gotcha. Okay. I mean, Belichick and Barry Odom. We're already making the posters for it. We're already ready to go. So you have a Belichick thought. All right.
I do have a Belichick thought, and I know Bill Belichick will be tuned in tomorrow. It's one of my favorite sporting events. You better be on the couch by 3 o'clock. The intro for Army-Navy.
It's awesome.
Every year. Chills times a million. It's a must.
Well, the end of the game, too.
End of the game.
Yeah, when they're singing, the others
sings last.
Yeah, exactly.
Excellent as well. Continue to bet the under. It's great.
You don't believe it? It's hit 40, I think, at some point.
42-yard drives. I hope the weather is very poor so Navy can't attempt to throw it.
I'm trying to see. The over-under is 39.5.
Army,
it's up to 39.5, I should say.
Favorite, right?
Yeah. Yeah, Army's favored by nearly a touchdown. So we'll see what happens there. Again, normal Friday here on The Fan. Greg Rakestraw going to join us coming up at 8 o'clock. We'll do our picks, Colts and Broncos predictions at 8:30. Matt Taylor, voice of the Colts, going to join us at 9 o'clock. Mike Sanford Jr. does radio, former Western Kentucky coach, coached a half a year at Colorado when they fire whatever coach they fired. So he does a bunch of media up there. He'll join us coming up at 9:30 as well. Appreciate you waking up with us. On the other side, what did DeForest Buckner say about the magnitude of Sunday's game, plus your news and scores from overnight? It's a Football Friday right here, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Plenty to break down from a Colts and Broncos standpoint, and a busy weekend hoops-wise as well. Andy Sweeney, I think you'll go to a man that celebrated in Lucas Oil Stadium last Saturday night with his Oregon Ducks. DeForest Buckner to lead off this morning.
You're right. He probably had fewer alcoholic beverages than I did, I would imagine there. I'm sure he was on the field, whatever it may be. But you're right. It's Colts and Broncos coming up on Sunday. Biggest game of the season, really, for both teams, but especially the Colts. DeForest Buckner meeting with the media yesterday. I thought he had some pretty good insights on, hey, it's not just the young guys. Everybody needs to know this is a big game.
People say we're fighting to get in the playoffs, but we're already in it. This is a playoff game, and from here on out, that's what they are. To get to where we want to be, we got to approach each and every game like it's a playoff game, and it is. It's win or go home essentially, and we can't hope and pray on somebody else. For our fortune, we got to make our own fortune. So it starts on Sunday.
Obviously, the game on TV, CBS at 4:25. Now, here's the breakdown of what it's going to be like here on our air. Hank FM is going to have the entire Colts broadcast, pregame, game, all the postgame. The Fan will have the pregame basically up until the game. Then we'll go to the Pacers. After the Pacers broadcast, we'll come back. So whatever's left of the game and obviously all of the postgame and everything else. But the full broadcast will be on our sister station, Hank FM. Again, on TV, 4:25 on CBS. And currently where the line sits, Denver favored by 4.5.
Again, injury report-wise, it's been Braden Smith and Ashton Doolin. Those are the two that have missed practice. Josh Downs progressed up to a full participant, so good news there. And Denver's got a key injury we will get to on their front. All right, upcoming as well, it'll be the Pacers tonight, 7 o'clock in Philly. They are about a 5.5, 6.5 point underdog in this one. Again, it looks like Philly will have a healthy big three in Joel Embiid and Paul George. And Tyrese Maxey. Pacers' first game along with Philly all week long. They will then return home. Indiana take on a very banged-up New Orleans Pelicans team on Sunday. That is a 5 o'clock tip. And then out west starting next Thursday. So, again, even early next week, they still won't have a ton of games. So Friday, Sunday, a couple days off, and they will head out west for their first trip there this season.
You going to be booing Paul George in your living room? I know you're not as anti-Paul George as many of the listeners are.
I think the Pacers have got enough issues to worry about.
They need to worry about themselves and not Paul George 8 years ago.
Chant traitor from the couch tonight.
You're probably right. College basketball over the weekend. Obviously, the Indy Classic there in Cambridge, Texas A&M and Purdue. That's the first game. Remember, that's the first game, noon on CBS, followed around 2:30, Wisconsin and Butler. You want to watch that game. That one will be on the Big Ten Network. And then, KB, I don't know if you've checked out the college hoops slate. You kind of teased it there, so I'm assuming you have. There's a bunch of really good games this weekend. You have Louisville and Kentucky. You have Ohio State, Auburn, UCLA, Arizona, Kansas, NC State is a pretty good one. Illinois, Tennessee as well. Gonzaga, UConn, Alabama, and Creighton. So this week, with not a lot of college football, college basketball front and center, and obviously the Indy Classic, a big part of it.
Well, again, IU tonight. So it starts there, 8 o'clock. That is a Fox tip from Lincoln. Indiana is a underdog on the road here, 3.5 point underdog. Nebraska 6-2 on the year. Michigan State throttled them last time out by 27. They did beat Creighton earlier this season. And remember, Connor Sejan, the Wisconsin transfer from up in the Fort Wayne area, he is their second leading scorer. Obviously, Nebraska, much different looking Nebraska team, had their way at multiple occasions with Indiana last season. Thursday Night Football, it was rainy, it was ugly, it was a bunch of field goals. The Rams outkicked the 49ers 12-6 in that one.
It's a fantasy football tragedy last night.
It really was.
I mean, no Matthew Stafford. Kyron Williams had 108 yards. He didn't get into the end zone. I guess Puka Nacua, he had 7 catches for 97 yards. That's the only guy that did anything for you in fantasy football last night, with all the stars all over the field.
And shout out to a name that I think this state knows quite well when it comes to football. That would be the Lynch family. Kevin Lynch going to Butler to take over there for Mike Uremovich, be the head coach there. Ironically, Mike Uremovich was the head coach at Butler. He leaves to go be the head coach at Ball State. Kevin Lynch was the play caller at Ball State, and he comes down to his dad's alma mater and is going to coach there at Butler.
You got anything else?
I don't.
I'm good to go, too. So, coming up on the other end, what have you mentioned this? I thought it was interesting. What have the Colts not done well this season that they could do well on Sunday? Plus, I have a thought on the Pacers as well. We got you to 10 o'clock. We'll keep it going here. It's a Football Friday on the Fan.
little Friday the 13th action. I believe that's where Corbin is going there on this Friday morning. Greg Rakestraw going to join us here at 8 o'clock. I would argue probably 5 to 6 times over the last week I've had someone come up to me and say, did you see what Braylon Mullins did against Ben Davis last week? I believe Rick was on the call, so he will join us coming up. We'll chat about that big tournament over at Southport coming up here tomorrow. There was this Bill Belichick element from the press conference that I wanted to get to here from yesterday that I did have to chuckle at. We'll touch on that here in a bit. But, Andy, obviously Sunday, it is such a monumental game, Colts and Broncos. Do you believe in the altitude impacting things in Denver at all?
Yeah, boy, I don't think so. I mean, maybe a little bit, but I don't think so. I think they'll be fine. I mean, I know it's going to be a bunch of players, even Anthony Richardson, his first time dealing with it, but you imagine you get out there, you warm up, you try to get acclimated. Do you? I mean, I'm hoping it's not one of the top 5 things we talk about on Sunday or on Monday, to be quite honest.
Yeah, 2 things. One, I guess beet juice.
Oh, beet juice.
That is what you do in terms of drinking it throughout the week to try and counter that. That sounds awful. Probably the most disgusting thing that I ever felt like I was witnessing with my parents growing up was my dad's religious nature to drinking V8s.
Oh, really? Okay.
Were you ever a V8 human, or were you ever around anyone?
I never was, but were they like tomato-based drinks?
Yeah. I mean, horrific.
See, like Bloody Marys. Corbin may not like this. I'm not a Bloody Mary guy at all. So, listen, I'm an alcohol guy. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just not a Bloody Mary guy whatsoever.
Yeah, I'd rather put something in the coffee. Yeah, I'd rather mimosa it up. Yeah, I'm not that at all.
V8s.
Yeah, it's just sickening. So, I don't know. Maybe Bruce Bowen would be ready for a trip to Denver. But, it's funny. Reggie Wayne spoke on Thursday, and obviously he has played many games in Denver in his career, and he was asked, is it a thing? And he's like, oh, hell yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's a thing. So I'm trying not to overreact to it, but I do want to bring this up, Andy. I feel like there has been a moment or two, particularly on longer drives, where we've seen a little hand on the hip from Anthony Richardson. And so you are starting to run him more. Again, I don't want to bring it up more than probably just this 2 minutes here, but I don't know. It's just something to keep an eye on of, can you run him, I guess, to the effectiveness that you have, the amount that you have. And I guess that plays into this. I'm still waiting for the Richardson-Taylor explosion. The true, oh my gosh, that's what Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts have done this year. That's what Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson have done this year. I don't think we've gotten it.
No, we haven't.
Lately, we haven't gotten the big run plays either. I mean, especially from Taylor. If you look at the last 3 or 4 games, you haven't gotten the big Taylor chunk runs. And I think if the Colts are going to go out to Denver and get such a vital win, that is a must.
Yeah, he hasn't averaged, Jonathan Taylor. This is one thing I was going to bring up. He has not averaged 4 yards per carry, and I'm using that as an example. It's not the end-all, be-all. For instance, in New England, he averaged 3.8, so he was very close. But he hasn't averaged 4 yards per carry since the Buffalo game. And if you remember, in the Buffalo game, what did he have in the Buffalo game? He had a 58-yard run, which, of course, skews things, but it's also kind of what you're talking about. It's also kind of the point. I feel like, especially in the Jets game and the New England game. Now, games they won. Didn't you feel like Shane Steichen probably had to keep telling himself, we need to stick with Jonathan Taylor, even though we're only getting 2 and 3 yards per rush? Don't you feel like that's been a conversation we've had this year, that they've got away from Jonathan Taylor sometimes? I think it was 1 carry in the second half against Detroit, and then I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, this is 2 weeks ago, 16 touches in the second half in that game in New England. And so how much of that is part of the conversation when you talk about, maybe it's not dynamic, but you got to keep everybody honest by continuing to run Jonathan Taylor. There's no doubt, I feel like the last couple games that Anthony Richardson, I feel more comfortable about him being able to get 7 or 8 yards than Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, and again, I feel like I'm still even waiting a little bit more for the Richardson run. Certainly probably Taylor is the one that surprises me, but, even the big Richardson run, you feel like it has some potential. And I think one thing to point out about Denver is this. They've won 8 games, 7 of the 8 by 2 scores. But outside of Baltimore, which Baltimore just jumped on a big time early in that game, they really haven't faced this makeup of a dual threat nature to Richardson and Taylor. So I do think that is something of, going back to what we talked about at the beginning of the show, hey, what is the bye week wrinkle? It seems like the bread and butter run play for the Colts right now is that Richardson run to the left. Okay, what
else?
What comes off of that now as you exit the bye week? So I guess, can the run game be explosive? That is a big, big storyline, and I would argue a big, big must for the Colts coming up on Sunday.
Yeah, we do this all the time. Okay, so who's to blame that they can't do that? Because right now, you're right, Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts can run the football, but they cannot throw the football, but they're still able to run the football. I mean, is this an offensive line thing for the Colts? Because we know the Colts they're a dynamic, Anthony Richardson can throw it down the field, but the completion percentage is not there with the Colts. They're not going to pick you apart. He's not going to go 22 for 28 on Sunday, you would imagine. So why can the Eagles do it? Is it because of that offensive line? Because they're not throwing the ball either.
I'd probably start O-line, and again, I thought New England, the O-line is much, much better in that New England game. So I'd probably start there. I felt like, and I could be nitpicking here with Taylor, I feel like I haven't seen him get to that full throttle gear
You think
lately.
he's dancing a little bit?
A little bit of that, and then, we've seen a couple times where the ankle's been, retaped in games, so how much did the bye week help him out? How much did the bye week help out Michael Pittman Jr.? Guys that have dealt with different things this season have missed various amounts of times, or in Pittman's case, tried to gut it out. And I guess if you transition over to the wideout group, Andy, it looks like your top four will be healthy coming into this game. And Denver, their big injury is Riley Moss, their opposite corner to Patrick Surtain. It looks like he's going to miss Sunday afternoon. And that was a huge problem for them that Jameis Winston really feasted upon on Monday Night Football a week ago. They benched Levi Wallace mid-game for his play at corner. So how can the Colts attack that? Can they? That is, I think, another big angle to this one.
Surtain is on who? How do you think the Broncos play that?
I don't know if they'll purely shadow him.
It's a good question.
But
he follows. He goes both sides of the field.
I just don't know who or why you would do that with the Colts.
By the way, you just brought your chapstick out. Mm-hmm. Is the chapstick working? Off the air, you were scolding your chapstick yesterday for not working. Is it back? Is it fixed?
I mean, it's one of those things where I know I'm only going to get 3 more spins of the wheel at it.
Is that all you're going to get?
But man, I'm in peak chapstick weather.
Oh boy, you are. It's terrible. My hands get really dry.
Oh, see, I'm not that.
You're not that at all. I guess I got that from my dad. My hands get dry. The rest of my body's fine. Just my hands. It's kind of an odd thing. So if you smell lotion, I guess,
Oh, jeez, boy, that's a comforting thought.
Is that a visual you wanted at 7:45 in the morning?
Says Friday the 13th, nightmares like that. It'll be Spiro Ditas, Adam Archuleta coming up again, 4:25, Colts and Broncos. Just to go over the injury report one more time for the Colts heading into their final practice of the week. Ryan Kelly back to practice this week. He's missed a month with that knee injury. And if you want to act like him and Tanner Bortolini have been kind of even in terms of their play this season, I do think this is going to be a very hostile environment compared to what you played in New England or New York about a month ago. So, having a guy like Kelly with over 100 starts, you would hope that kind of helps you out from a communication standpoint on the front of that line. And then without Braden Smith, it looks like Matt Gonzalez, again, the rookie, out at right tackle. But Josh Downs full yesterday, so they will get back him in the lineup, which is big.
I'll say this, some of the top guys maybe right now aren't working out. A.D. Mitchell is one of those guys early on in this draft class, but, going offensive line ended up working for Chris Ballard, did it not? Imagine if they don't draft those guys. What are they doing at offensive line?
Yeah, because
it's a fair question.
Yeah, they really didn't do anything from a veteran depth standpoint.
Of course they didn't.
In the offseason on that O-line, so they've had to rely on those guys. And one thing to go back to when you bring up the draft, if you go back to that preseason game between the Colts and the Broncos, Latu actually had some rushes against Garrett Bowles, Denver's left tackle, who actually signed a big extension this week. And I thought Latu had some nice moments against Bowles in that game. Now, Denver's offensive line has been very solid this season. They allowed the third fewest sacks in the NFL. For a rookie quarterback, that's pretty impressive to have that. But, Latu, I think we've seen a little bit more out of him from a production standpoint here in recent weeks. Can he get that going versus a guy that actually he's going to see for a second time? And, who knows? That could go both ways. Now does Bowles, know a little bit of what Latu can throw at him? Getting after Bo Nix certainly is something the Colts need to do.
Greg Rakestraw going to join us coming up at 8 o'clock. We'll do more of this at 8:30, but this is just how I feel. I don't know which way you're picking the game. I got to be honest. I don't know what Corbin's going to say coming up at 8:30. I think I gave it a little bit away of what I was thinking yesterday, but I'm not doing that asking this question. Why would you pick the Colts in this game? I'm just that's a general question. If you're a fan, other than just, hey, the Colts can go on the road, they've had the bye week to get ready, they're healthier, whatever it may be. What would be the reasons? I said this in the open. You go back to last year, KB. They had multiple games like this on the road, Cincinnati, on the road, Atlanta, where everything was on the line, and then of course at home, the final game of the year against Houston, they didn't win them, and. This year, unfortunately for the Colts, they haven't beat anybody except for, and I say it's a big win, except for Pittsburgh. They've lost to the better teams, and some of them have not been close, and they've beat the bad teams, but they've needed, I don't want to say a miracle, but they've needed 19 play drives, last second plays, fourth down conversions, fourth down touchdown, going for two, right? Steichen kind of putting it all on the table there. Why would you pick them? And now you could say my reason would be Denver hasn't beat anybody either. Denver lost to Seattle. They lost to Pittsburgh. They lost to the Chargers and Baltimore and Kansas City. But they beat the bad teams, Vegas, Falcons, Browns, Saints, Panthers. So that might be your reason. Your reason might be, we're a better team than anyone Denver has beat this year. Maybe Tampa Bay would argue with you on that. They're a playoff team right now because the South stinks over there in the NFC. But, this has been a game the last couple years that, quite frankly, the Colts just have not won.
No, but neither is Denver.
And that's the point.
I would start there. It's kind of a bit of a Spider-Man meme of wait, something's got to give. Denver hasn't made the playoffs since 2015. Denver, I don't think, has had a winning season dating back to that long. And so one of these young quarterbacks is probably going to be in the playoffs.
Someone's got to win. Between them two, the best, the Steelers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are the two wins that these two teams have on their resume this season. That's it.
Yeah, as you lay it out, there's no good win, really, outside of those two, and I don't even know how much you classify Tampa as that. They've certainly feasted on a lot of bottom feeders in the league. I would say this. I've brought up this stat on a couple occasions this week. It's a pretty historic statistic that is in Denver's favor. Denver leads the league in sacks right now. They give up the third fewest sacks. That sack differential is one of the best the NFL has seen in the last 15 years. So that has been such a huge part of them being 8-5. 7 of these 8 wins have been by 2 scores. Well, on paper, I think the Colts do have an ability to counter that. Anthony Richardson doesn't get sacked.
Right.
Just flat out.
No,
he has not.
Doesn't.
He has not been sacked in quite a while, and he's escaped and done a really good job of that. Now, again, can he keep it all up? And I know it sounds like a stupid little thing, but if there's some stamina stuff with the altitude, is he able to still be as escapey as he has been throughout kind of longer drives? So I would start there in terms of can you limit Denver's NFL best sack numbers? And then on the flip side of it, I'm not holding my breath that Gus Bradley will do this, but you would think facing a rookie quarterback coming out of a bye week, you'd have some wrinkles. You'd have some disguises. You'd have some different fronts that maybe he has seen. That is probably an internally optimistic view by me.
I'm looking at you like you're crazy.
Right.
I apologize. Yeah,
no,
I'm staring at you like, huh?
I deserve it. I'm bringing it up, and I'm countering it with, I don't know if I believe what I'm saying.
You don't. You're hoping. You're not predicting.
Sure.
You're just,
right.
You're a boy out there on December the 13th trying to hope on a Christmas Friday.
I'm looking up in the sky. Yeah. I'm not holding my breath to see necessarily.
You know what worries me the
Rudolph's
most about this? Bo Nix gets the ball out pretty quick. That's one reason why he doesn't have a lot of sacks. Now, they throw it deeper. We talked about that the last couple of days, that they'll take more shots than Drake May and the Patriots did. But I guess we'll talk with Mike Sanford there in Denver coming up at 9:30 in a couple hours. That's kind of my thing. Is Gus Bradley, and the answer is yes, is he going to be 15 yards off wide receivers if Bo Nix is trying to get the ball out quick? because that's the reason the Drake May was so damn efficient a couple weeks ago. What was he, 22 of 27? I mean, he basically felt pretty easy back there, did he not? For Drake May, a lot of the time. And so that gets back to,
I think Denver's got a better offensive line than New England.
Of course.
The skill group bar is very low in New England. Denver's got a better skill group. So, yeah, I think that's probably where some of your worry lies. Belichick yesterday at the presser.
I love you watching this. I didn't even watch it all.
Oh, how did you not?
I know, and I've been pumping up this Belichick hire for the last month.
You see he's still going to do McAfee and Manning cast?
You're damn right he is. You were all over that. He has to. Him being a college coach means he has to do more of those things.
So I told you yesterday I will laugh when Belichick does the college football thing. Okay. Everybody's got to do the college football thing.
Okay.
You grab the mic at the LaSalle game coming up you say, bleep Dabo, and you drop the mic and you high-five Hubert Davis and you walk off the floor. Yesterday, Belichick gave us a little morsel of it.
Did he?
Now, his father was an assistant coach at North Carolina.
Yeah, like 70 years ago. Yeah.
And Belichick claimed yesterday to start the press conference.
Oh, I forgot this.
That his first words were beat Duke.
Corbin, go on
do
Twitter.
Do we believe him?
I meant to send this to Corbin to dub over or do it myself. Thank God you rememred that.
You think anyone ever says beat Duke in football?
I mean, his dad was an assistant coach there 70 years ago, and we're acting like that's the emotional tie to North Carolina. Come on.
Now, the thing that really stood out to me is contractually.
Oh, yeah.
A 3-year guaranteed contract for Bill Belichick, reportedly at $10 million annually. That is a very significant number that automatically puts him among the elite of college football. Did you happen to see the buyout?
I did see. It goes down after, is it just the first year?
No, it's after, June, 6 months from now.
No, 6 months from now, yeah.
June 2025.
It goes down $9 million.
The buyout becomes $1 million. Now, I mean, we are all about buyouts in college athletics.
That's all that matters. We talk about it all the
time. If Mike Woodson
time.
loses tonight, Indy Star's most Googleable story will be, what is Mike Woodson's buyout?
Yeah, damn right it will.
The Ryan Walters buyout had to probably be one of the more, again, searched stories on Indy Star's site here.
Pegs.com will be on fire tonight if they lose.
Fan bases care about buyouts more than they care about who the hot shot recruit is visiting.
And athletic directors have been forced into giving these ridiculous buyouts.
Belichick's buyout is $1 million. So if an NFL team
in June
has Bill Belichick interest, we have to have Belichick for 1 year in college and then goes right back to the NFL?
I don't know why it's that way. Is it because he got everything he wanted here?
I mean,
where it's like if
who was North Carolina negotiating against?
Reese.
I mean, what
Tommy Reese.
What leverage did North Carolina have?
They didn't have any. It was that, or hey, we're going to Tommy Reese. Do you have this, Corbin? This was at the press conference. Go ahead. This is Belichick talking about Duke.
Over again, and so one story I always heard was Billy's first words were "beat Duke."
I mean, nobody believes that. He doesn't believe that. Like,
is there anything better than the college football coach press conference and the president and the AD having to laugh their ass off at the jokes?
Oh, everyone, all the media,
boosters
Bill.
front row.
Oh yeah.
Now, I didn't see the girlfriend at the presser.
Well, I have a theory on that. Do you want my theory?
Don't you want her front and center? The moms of the recruits want to see her.
Hang on, you're not wrong. But here's my theory.
Is she looking for houses in the Chapel Hill area?
She might be. My theory is you got to watch these things, okay? So, for instance, KB, this comes up more in weddings, okay? So, if someone in your wedding party has a girlfriend but not a wife, and you can obviously flip-flop it, you got to watch out because
does
you
she
don't
sit at the table.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You don't want the girlfriend in all of the big time photos because you don't think that relationship is going to last. I will give you a personal example. When me and Nikki got married many blissful years ago, okay?
A magical day.
A magical day there in August. We got married, and I'm trying to remember if Nikki's brother he was just in a relationship at the time.
Oh, boy. Pictures with her or without her?
Well, most of the pictures are without her. And Nikki has mentioned, because she hated her, of course, stereotypically, many different times. Thank God what's her name is not in our pictures. So my opinion is that she's not up there with Bill, because if this doesn't last for the next however many years he's in North Carolina.
We gotta believe in love.
Listen. I want to believe that Belichick in his 70s and a 24-year-old. I want to believe in that love more than anybody.
Belichick making out of the 50-yard line after beating Duke.
A little kiss after beating Manny Diaz.
Now, we do have some Belichick-related girlfriend betting lines. Are you ready for this?
Let's go.
So these are either ors. Belichick fired at the end of the 2025 season, or he's broken up with his girlfriend.
No, broken up. They're not firing Belichick. Yeah, that's easy.
Okay.
I'll take that
The
one.
other one, girlfriend enrolls for classes at North Carolina.
Gets a master's degree.
Or the girlfriend breaks up with Belichick and dates a North Carolina player.
I'm going to say enrolling. I mean, if I'm her, I'm taking advantage of that friends and family discount, right?
No, we need
Free
a
tuition,
soap
come
opera.
on.
We need the backup quarterback. All of a sudden, the starter gets benched and says, "Screw this, coach. I'm going to DM."
Oh, good.
Mrs. Belichick.
I don't even know her name.
Yeah, I have. I have no idea on her name.
That's interesting. Well, I like
Duke.
Beat Duke.
Just doesn't really roll off the tongue as much as Kurt Signetti grabbing the mic at Assembly Hall.
That's the first thing that the greatest football coach of our generation thought. Oh, Billy, beat Duke. Anyone's believing that. Greg Rakestraw, we love him. It's a Football Friday. He joins us next here on The Fan.
A busy hoops weekend as well. Obviously, Colts and Broncos, that is the marquee one, but got Pacers and IU both in action tonight. Of course, the Indy Classic over at Gainbridge Fieldhouse tomorrow. Pacers back at home Sunday, and I know Greg Rakestraw will be a busy man coming up on Saturday. We'll get to that with Rake here in just a second. Greg, I actually want to begin here. I think I asked you this in some form or fashion like a month ago. I was like, all right, hypothetically, if we get Notre Dame and Indiana in a college football playoff game, could you compare it to anything in our state's history from a sporting event standpoint? There might not be a great answer, honestly, to this question. I'll ask you it again now that we have it. Do you compare it to anything that we've had?
No, just because this situation is so unique and because there is such shockingly little history between the two teams in this sport when they have such history in not every other sport, but a lot of them, there's nothing that is, that comparable to something like this. So it is so unique. It is so far-fetched until this year that it's almost incomprehensible.
Andy brought up Kentucky and Louisville in the Final Four.
Correct.
What was that,
Yeah.
Andy? That was a while back, right?
It was 2012 when Kentucky won the national title with Calipari. It's the only one I can think of.
Those fan bases hate each other.
Right.
Since Andy's such a youngin' compared to me, let me educate my fellow Southern Indiana guy here. All right, 1983, U of L and UK play each other in the Elite Eight to go to the Final Four. It was the first time the schools had played each other in 25 years. U of L won. Their next game was against Flama Jamma.
Yeah, the dream game, right?
Lost, and correct. And then, obviously, Houston got beat by NC State. Jim Belvano survive and advance in the 83 championship game in Albuquerque. But basically, what that NCAA tournament meeting was between U of L and UK was the start then of those two schools playing then every year, which still continues to this day and eventually led to football playing, on a regular basis. So that is the most apt comparison because it's postseason. It's kind of right before you get to a championship, and it's two schools that routinely didn't play each other. Now, is IU and Notre Dame going to play every year in football? Well, of course not. I know IU is on the schedule coming up, but it's not like because of the way things work, we're going to see each other every once in a while. This is more like Halley's Comet. This is like a one-time thing. Enjoy it.
Yeah, I think we're going to enjoy it. And these fan bases, there is some mixing and melding. These fan bases don't quite have the hate there. Greg Rakestraw with us. What do you think about the game? I mean, obviously next Friday we'll talk to you. It'll be game day for the Hoosiers and the Fighting Irish. But just early thoughts a week away? What do you think about that game? Can IU win that game?
Of course they can win that game. Now, is Notre Dame the favorite? Yes. But, the thing that I have cited is, do I think Notre Dame has this massive, overwhelming athleticism advantage that, say, maybe an SEC team might if Indiana was playing them? I don't think that's the case. And Notre Dame will have slight home field advantage. But, again, one of the biggest advantages that the teams have in the round of 12 would be if Northern team is hosting Southern team. Well, or maybe even the flip side of that. That's not the case here. And so I think this is going to be a one-possession type game up in South Bend next week.
He is Greg Rakestraw, of course, ISC Sports Network, Colts post-game show host. A little bit later start coming up on Sunday with the 425 kick. Greg, I want to go to what I have had several people reach out and ask me about over the last week. I think you were on the call of this game, and I apologize if you weren't. But Braylon Mullen's effort against Ben Davis. I mean, people are, I think, kind of in awe of that performance. I think the numbers were like 41 of their 57, not 42 of their 57, something like that. Were you there? Were you on the call?
I was on the call of that one. That was on my NDY, and I will see Mr. Mullins coming up again tonight and tomorrow on the ISC Sports Network. So our game this evening is Greenfield Central and New Pal. I would expect that game is a sellout out at Greenfield Central. And then tomorrow, Braylon plays, I should say Greenfield Central and Braylon plays Lawrence North, 5:15. That is not a television game. That is available at iscsportsnetwork.com and ihsaatv.org. Our two television games tomorrow will be Jeffersonville and Noblesville, followed by Attucks and Fishers. But no, that kid is Mr. Basketball. Now, there's a slight bit of an asterisk to that game because of the fact that Mark Zachary is injured and not playing. Mark, I think, is one of the 2 or 3 kids in the state that could come close to guarding Braylon Mullins. And so, but still, it was a tremendous performance. Braylon's averaging, 36, 37 points a game so far this year through 3 games played. Now, in tonight's game, he will see Julius Gizzi, who is one of the few guys in the state that can match him from a scoring perspective at their biggest rival in New Pal. And New Pal was the only team that beat Greenfield Central, and it was last year in the sectional championship as the Cougars went 24-1. So yeah, I've seen the kid play. He's tremendous, and thankfully I'll see him 3 or 4 more times here in the month of December.
Well, I'll be selfish for a second. My Red Devils got a shot against Noblesville?
They do have a shot against Noblesville now. Trey Singleton is not playing because of a knee injury, but again, people forget there's 2 other Division I kids on that team in Cooper and Douglas. They're both going to play at Wright State. And even without Trey, Jeff beat Cathedral at home 2 weeks ago, and they lost to a much-improved Pike team.
You're damn right.
Neutral site event last Saturday in Ohio. But Jeffersonville is legitimately one of the best 3 or 4 teams in the state. Looking forward to seeing your Red Devils in action tomorrow night.
It's a busy Southport, right? Rake, a ton of not only D1 flavor, but some of the best teams in the state over there, or I should say down there.
Correct. So it is a 6-team event at the home of the Southport Cardinals tomorrow. Forum Tip-Off Classic. So quickly in order, South Bend, Riley, Warren Central, followed by New Pal and Zionsville, Southport and Avon, then Greenfield Central, Lawrence North, Jeff, Noblesville, Addix, Fishers, and again, Addix got beat by La Lumiere last night, so it's their first loss. But they have been largely playing without Desmond Briscoe, and they have been really good, including beating Lawrence North a couple of weeks ago. So Addix and Fishers, at least in the coaches' poll right now, is the matchup of number 1 versus number 2. Fishers has been throttling people. They may even be better than they were a year ago, and they were the state champions in 28-1. So looking forward to seeing Garrett Weininger's team in action for the first time tomorrow night.
That's the voice of Greg Rakestraw right here on The Fan on this Football Friday. Joins us on the Payless Liquors hotline. I mentioned football. You'll be on the postgame. Obviously, you have the Colts and Broncos, the biggie on Sunday. How did the Colts get the win? How can they go on the road and get the biggest win over the last couple seasons?
Continuing to see the progress of Anthony Richardson. Obviously, he has led touchdown, scoring, game-winning drives over each of the last 2 road games. It is simply a better level of competition they are playing. It's an unbeatable level of competition they are playing. So need to win the turnover battle, need to have Richardson play well in order to do that. A healthy dose of Jonathan Taylor would not hurt. But I think, like most situations, it comes down to quarterback play. But I really think if the Colts win the turnover battle, they give themselves an excellent shot to win the football game on Sunday afternoon.
Rake, we'll end with this. Tomorrow used to be one of my favorite days of the year, and that was the Crossroads Classic. It is now, of course, the Indy Classic. It'll be Purdue and A&M at noon, and then Butler, Wisconsin at 2:30. You're a smart dude. People listen to you. People respect you. Make the Crossroads Classic work for me down the road. I'm thinking of this out loud. We have a lot of mid-major coaches with plenty of ties around the state now, and Paul Casaro and Matthew Graves and Michael Lewis. Could we go noon and 2:30, maybe some of the mid-major teams, and then at night we get kind of the bigger flavor at 6 and 8:30? I don't know. Different sessions, anything you can cook up. I get that, Indiana and Notre Dame are probably still going to be too stubborn to want to do it, but make it work. Hell, Micah Shrewsbury might want to do it now that he's back in Notre Dame, but who knows?
Correct. So my guess is that, and I understand their perspective, Butler and Purdue don't want to share the stage. And frankly, kudos to them, Forks Indiana Sports Corp, to put this together. To bring in Texas A&M and Wisconsin for this is pretty impressive. But the best chance for an event to bring everybody together, and I will throw this softball out either to my friends at the rechristened Corteva Coliseum at the State Fairgrounds, or what I think is even has a better chance of working is at the all-new Fishers Event Center, would be to approach basically the other 7 Division I teams in the state and go, guys, we need to put you together and have a single-day shootout. And if you can guarantee the Indiana States, the Evansville, the Valparaisos, Purdue, Fort Wayne obviously already plays here, Ball State, et cetera, hey, guys, we're in a venue for you. We get to play an in-state team, and you get a game in Indianapolis in front of your largest alumni base in the state every year. I think they would jump on that. So is it going to happen at Gainbridge Fieldhouse? Probably not. But could you have an Indianapolis area-based event that brings everybody together and maybe even try to do it on the same day as the Indy Classic? I'm surprised that somebody hasn't jumped on that already, guys.
And, of course, next year it'll be Auburn. That will be the return trip for Purdue in the Indy Classic. Reminder, Purdue plays in Birmingham next Saturday against Auburn. The Indy Classic will have Bruce Pearl and company playing Purdue next season. So Purdue's run will be Davidson, Arizona, A&M, and Auburn in the 4 iterations coming up next year of the Indy Classic. Rake, have a great day at Southport, and I know it'll be a busy Colts postgame show coming up on Sunday. Enjoy that as well.
Thanks, fellas. Greg
Rakestraw right there, Payless Liquors hotline. You like any Crossroads Classic ideas?
I know. Listen, I think Micah Shrewsbury needs to be a leader with Notre Dame and put Notre Dame back in. I'm sorry. If Indiana wants to be stubborn, to hell with it. Indiana, if I'm not mistaken, has, and this is not Woody's fault, okay, besides the Crossroads, Indy Classic, whatever, I'm trying to remember which one because Calipari always talked about this. Because remember the Watt shot happened, and then John Calipari was never going to go back into Bloomington again. You remember that?
Sure.
I don't know how, you guys probably didn't talk about that, but that was a very hot topic for me. And so when Calipari and Woody decided to play the 3-game set, Calipari told people close to him how much he thought he got over on Indiana. Plus, we all knew that he wouldn't be around to go back into Bloomington, which is exactly what ended up happening. But Indiana also turned down, I can't remember if it was the Champions Classic or the CBS Sports Classic, but they turned down at least one of those. And I just cannot remember which one. I mean, it's very much out there that they didn't want to do it. So, to me, you're one of the big guys in the state.
Yeah.
Go be a leader and quit running, but whatever.
So Notre Dame, I think, has opted for the Georgetown Marquette type of history, which, to be fair to Notre Dame, they do have some rich history with those types of schools. I agree with you, though. I would obviously like to see Notre Dame in Indy. Now, Indiana, we know next year. You bring up the Kentucky series. That starts next year.
Yeah, it does.
And that is next weekend on the calendar. I believe that's December 20th. I think you'll get IU, Kentucky at Rupp next year, the same day as Purdue, Auburn at Gainbridge Fieldhouse.
That's pretty good, though, man. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Again, my issue with it that I think is just a bummer for Indiana fans is, of the 4 games in this series, 2 of them are at Rupp and only one's at Assembly Hall. Remember, Lucas Oil is where the first game is, that's Cal getting his way.
Yeah, that's Cal getting his way,
So, again, that will start next year. And obviously, Indiana had done the Arizona game out in Vegas. Remember that? They did the home-and-home with Kansas. This year, they don't have that. I don't know how the Big Ten schedule plays into it, too. Because remember, we've seen, Purdue was at Penn State last Thursday, and then they had Maryland on Sunday, and yet they still have gotten in their schedule, A&M coming up tomorrow,
right?
Auburn next Saturday.
And the Big Ten has opted to start earlier than other conferences.
Indiana, their Big Ten slate to start was obviously Minnesota on Monday, then they'll go to Nebraska tonight. So I don't know if you have to, tell the Big Ten office, hey, can you leave that date a little bit more open for it? I get why Indiana's not playing a game tomorrow, of course.
Sure.
They're playing tonight in Lincoln. So I don't know. I know that my idea with Rake of, again, could you get the mid-major schools playing each other and then the bigger schools at night? It's never going to happen, but it's just a bummer because I thought the Crossroads Classic was such a great idea. I like that the Indy Classic has become something. It's better than nothing.
Oh, no, they've had very good teams. I mean, Arizona, Texas A&M, Purdue is in the game. I mean, these are big-time teams.
I just missed that day. I just thought it was a really fun day.
And almost to the point, I know Indiana fans get defensive, and then some agree with the things that I'm saying. Let's move Indiana aside. This probably sounds like I'm getting on your guys, but this would be a perfect thing for Notre Dame to be a part of.
Yeah, I mean, you are probably right. I get why Notre Dame bowed out of it. They would have me, my brother, and 6 other fans there. They had, I would say,
give me a sweatshirt. I'll go with you.
They had decent success. I swear we blew too late to Indiana in that series. I think we throttled Purdue one of the years, but it's not like they were. I mean, they were probably 4-6 in their history or 3-7 in their history in the Crossroads Classic. And again, if you're Notre Dame and that fan base, do you want to reach, like this year they played at Georgetown, for example. Do you want to reach the D.C. area where you have a lot of history of Georgetown as an institution? Notre Dame likes to go to their different alumni pockets. They played at Marquette last year, for example. Is that kind of more of the angle you want to go with on that end?
Last thing I'll say on this, I give Matt Painter all the credit in the world
certainly
for scheduling the way that he does, because the downside is not there. And IU is one example. Syracuse, I think, basketball with Jim Boeheim for years was another example. Remember the joke was they never left New York until like mid-January. They never left until they got into ACC play. They never left the Northeast. And it's like college football, yes. You can schedule a game or two. Good God, we know we've talked about this the last couple of weeks, and it can really affect your resume, right? If you're trying to make the college football playoff. That was all the nonsense between Alabama and the way Indiana scheduled and everything else. But in college basketball, a neutral site game against a top 25 team, a quad one game, it does way more in helping you than hurting you. Even if you lose the game, you're not penalized to the extent that you are in football. Plus, I am a firm believer, as is Matt Painter, who's had success here, that you play enough of those games, it helps you down the road. It helps you in tournament play, Big Ten play, Big Ten conference play. I'm sorry, playing LaSalle at home or whatever. I say North Dakota State, even though they played pretty well the other night. It doesn't. You can have some of those games, but mixing in something like the Indy Classic, and good for them, they pivoted away. When the locals ran out, they pivoted away, and they've brought in really good teams, and teams that aren't local. They brought in teams, Texas, Arizona. These are teams that aren't a state over. These guys got to travel a little bit, so good for them.
Coming up, we'll talk with Matt Taylor, voice of the Colts, at 9. Mike Sanford, Denver radio, at 9:30. Is looking like Josh Downs will be back in the lineup, obviously, unfortunately, and again, more importantly, hope everything is okay with Braden Smith on that end. It looks like Braden Smith will miss another game here upcoming on Sunday. Who would you rather have, Josh Downs or Braden Smith for this matchup?
Boy, it's a great question. I guess I would say, last week or 2 weekends ago, we felt like the offensive line was good enough in some of these games. To me, I would say Downs, because I feel like Surtain is going to take someone away on every play. And I don't feel like he's going to be on Downs, right? I feel like he's on Pittman or Pierce probably more than Downs. That leaves them a good option, given the Doolin's out and A.D. Mitchell's, non-existent at this point.
Yeah, it's funny. I hear you out on that, but then I'm thinking, isn't it kind of ludicrous to not want the stalwart at right tackle against the best sack team in the NFL, probably the most hostile environment you've played in all year, and it's a rookie at right tackle. And I don't think Matt Gonzalez has been, Olay over there when he's been in the lineup. Again, he hasn't played a ton. He's played, last week the New England game was his first start, but it's probably a credit to Anthony Richardson that you say, well, I guess it can be a credit and also looked at it from the other way. You could say it's a credit to Anthony Richardson because he avoids all these sacks. He's been Houdini-like in keeping plays alive and not having the negative plays. The other side of it would say the passing game has lacked so much steadiness or consistency or methodical nature. You really need Josh Downs.
I know.
Because your tight ends stink and your running backs don't catch the ball out of the backfield.
That's how I view it.
Yeah.
Listen, it's not to say the offensive line is important. My point is...
And, of course, Richardson gets, hit on the first play of the game or something, and you might go differently.
Well, you're right. Is it a higher level with Braden Smith, and if they're at full strength on their offensive line, 1,000% that's better. I guess my view is if Surtain, and this is what he's done, if he's taking away Pierce or Pittman, and you don't have a running back that can catch the ball, and right now the tight end group has shown to be, what do we expect from them? Two catches, 25 yards on Sunday? Do we expect much more than that?
That might be the high end.
Yeah, 2 catches, 25 yards is what I'm expecting on Sunday. And you already have one of your big wide receivers taken away. Doolin's not going to play. Suddenly your options are pretty substandard, are they not, if you don't have Josh Downs? So I think the fall off of not having Downs perhaps a little bit more than the fall off on the offensive line. That's the way I view it. I could be wrong, and maybe on Monday morning we're talking about how wrong I was.
Much more on this here upcoming. You surprised at all that IU is a road underdog at 3.5, 4.5 points tonight? Nebraska's last outing out, they lost by 37 to Michigan State.
Is Michigan State any good? I mean, they're not a top 25 team. Do I know that Tom Izzo is going to be in the NCAA tournament this year? I would say a little bit because of what you just mentioned. Yeah. But, it's a road game. Indiana is still in the 50s in the net right now.
Yeah, very important. These are the games Indiana will have, they'll have a dozen of these in the Big Ten. Coin flippy type games.
Nebraska's in the 60s in the net, so right now this would be a quad one win for Indiana.
Particularly away from home, when your non-conference resume lacks substance, as you just laid out, it is vital that Indiana starts to get some of these here in the as they get into Big Ten play. All right, we'll give our picks for Colts and Broncos upcoming. Before all of that, let's go ahead and check it down.
Yeah, let's start. We've been talking about it all day on this Football Friday. It's Colts on the road in Denver taking on the Broncos. 4.5 points. That's your spread going into Sunday's game. Now, locker room was open yesterday. Jonathan Taylor, one of the players, meeting with the media. One thing that he mentioned that I thought was interesting, the poise. You mentioned the Jets game. You mentioned, obviously, New England with the final drive there, the 19 plays, 80 yards, the touchdown, the 2-point conversion. The poise, and we talked about this Wednesday, the poise of Anthony Richardson. Here's Taylor on AR.
I think you guys have seen the poise, especially in certain moments, especially late in the game. That usually comes from some of those veteran quarterbacks that have been in those situations a ton of times. So to see him have that poise, no matter what the situation is, we're literally on a 19-play drive to go in and win the game. To see him have that composure, have that poise, I just think that it won't be any different, going forward at all. I just think it's something special. Like I said, for him being that young to be able to have those moments, it's awesome to see.
Kickoff 4:25 on CBS. Now, radio, here's what we got cooking this weekend on our stations and on The Fan. All 9 hours, basically, of the entire broadcast. The pregame, the game itself, Greg Rakestraw and company on the postgame. The entire broadcast is going to be on Hank FM. The Fan will carry all the pregame, and then we'll break away for Pacers and Pelicans around 4:25, 4:30. And then after the Pacers broadcast, if there is obviously some of the game and all the postgame, we'll be back on The Fan and, of course, still on Hank FM. So it's a big one. We'll have you covered right here on the radio coming up on Sunday.
And just to remind everybody, with a win, playoff odds increased to 65%. With a loss, 10% for the Colts coming up on Sunday. All right, tonight in Philly, the Pacers back in action. Their first game since Sunday. They are a 6.5 point underdog right now to the 76ers, who look to be healthy tonight. They've won 4 of 5, Philly. And when I say healthy, I mean the big three: Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, and Paul George. I don't say this word lightly, and Joel Embiid is a great basketball player, but he has been the daddy to the Indiana Pacers and Miles Turner in his career. He averages more points against the Pacers than any team in the Eastern Conference, 31-11 in his career. And it's Miles Turner and you at center tonight for the Pacers.
I wonder why that's the case. Miles Turner doesn't allow anyone else's to go crazy. Yeah, I know Joel Embiid's obviously one of the better players in the world, but still,
Miles
come on.
Had some issues in his career against
just a little bit
more physical centers.
Yeah, I would say that's the case.
Very good player, but he's had issues.
You mentioned
those types of players.
College basketball tonight, Indiana and Nebraska. You got that one coming your way at 8 o'clock on Fox. And then we've been talking about it, the Indy Classic, your early game, noon, CBS, Texas A&M and Purdue. That's number 11 versus number 17. Haven't seen too much, I got to be honest, of Texas A&M. And then the afternoon game at 2:30, that will be televised Big Ten Network. Number 20, Wisconsin, coming off a loss. They face Butler. I tell you, boy, Thad Matta, you need that win.
Yes.
Thad Matta, brother, you need that win on Saturday.
Yeah, Butler needs a lot after the loss earlier this week. Wade Taylor, great guard for A&M. That'll be a big, big one for Purdue. Thursday night football last night. It was ugly weather. Hope you didn't have anyone in fantasy football that mattered. And
we did.
Had Matthew Stafford. 12-6. Rams beat the 49ers in that one, and a 49ers player told Kyle Shanahan he wasn't going into the game in the third quarter.
Given that the Niners are done, I'd like for maybe my team to go trade for Kyle Shanahan.
Devondre Campbell
team stinks.
In the third quarter The 49ers had an injury or two. They needed to turn to a reserve linebacker. Devondre Campbell said, nope, I'm not going in.
Now, that's way worse than anything Anthony Richardson did, tapping himself out of the game. This guy's being crushed, by the way, this morning. His own players.
George Kittle used the words dumb, stupid,
He crushed him.
Ignorant, immature to describe his teammate not going in the game.
That dude's getting cut. I would imagine he's probably gone, would be my guess. But yeah, 12-6 Thursday Night Football. I'm sure Al Michaels was pumped up for that one. How did Hammer do? Now, we didn't get the game, but he got Purdy. The over 2.5 or over 29.5.
Right?
No, he didn't score. One. Yeah. But he was the only guy that actually showed up offensively.
Yeah, we didn't have a single touchdown in that game. Speaking of touchdowns, the Butler Bulldogs hoping new head coach Kevin Lynch will bring a lot to the program. Certainly that last name, the son of Bill Lynch, Kevin Lynch, coming from Ball State. Ironically, he was the offense coordinator up there. He takes over for Mike Uramovich at the Butler Bowl.
Coming up on the other side, game picks. Who wins and why? We'll talk about it. It's a Football Friday, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Well, this probably goes against everything superstition-wise, but I'll bring it up for both teams, Andy.
Oh, boy. Here we go.
You see we have mythical quarterfinal lines for Georgia's game against either Notre Dame or Indiana.
I have not seen that, okay?
Some mythical betting lines. Now, remember, it looks like Carson Beck, Georgia's starting quarterback, will be out.
Oh, yeah.
With a UCL injury in that elbow. This game would be 8:45 p.m. New Year's Day night. Boy, you're going to have
Jeez.
5 naps to get to
goodness.
8:45 on
goodness.
New Year's Day night.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah,
I mean,
that's a rough one.
Because college football games are 4 hours long.
Oh, yeah, that's a 12:30 a.m. fine. I got to work the next day and everything. That's a mess.
You'll probably have like there's probably a game at 5 that'll delay
sure.
the Sugar
go
Bowl
late.
a little bit.
Yeah, go 3 to overtimes.
You want to take a stab at a mythical? Let's start here. Georgia-Indiana line.
I'm going to say a mythical Georgia-Indiana line. I'm going to say 16.5.
Whoa! Holy shnikes!
Is that right?
Andy
Is it spot on?
Sweeney.
How about that?
No, not even close.
No, it's not even close. I thought, wait, you got me all pumped up. What, Georgia, Indiana's, what is it then?
Indiana's a 5.5-point underdog to the Bulldogs.
You got to be kidding me.
Mythical line. I'm looking at it right here.
Are you kidding me? Really? Oh, I thought it would be 2 touchdowns. Really?
You added 2 touchdowns and a field goal.
My good. Okay, well, we'll see. Listen. If that opens at 5.5, every SEC gas bag is going to bet the hell out of that game.
Well, I think
so
one Jeffersonville gas bag here.
Make it 5.5.
Well, I guess.
So what's Notre Dame then?
Well, if you were doing a little bit of a
3.5.
Notre Dame favored.
Wait, Notre Dame's favored at Georgia.
1.5. Well, I mean, technically it's in New Orleans, but yes. Notre Dame 1.5-point favorite. Indiana 5.5-point underdog.
Listen. Do you know how offensive SEC people are going to take those 2 lines? And I don't know which one's worse. Notre Dame and Riley Leonard being favored over big bad Kirby Smart, or the fact that it's not even a touchdown spread with Kirk Cignetti and little old Indiana. Really?
Now, to be fair, have you watched Georgia this year?
I have, but I'm just stunned by that number. Like, usually there's a line that
this is not Georgia.
Yeah, I think you're right. Of course, they did beat Texas. I mean, they just did beat Texas. I don't know this backup quarterback. What's his name? Is it Duncan?
Stockton, right?
Gunner, yeah. Do you see the picture of him, by the way?
No.
With his eyes rolled in the back of his head and his leg all hanging out sideways. I mean, he got hit real big in that game against Texas at like the 5-yard line.
I thought you meant the other guy, Beck.
No, Beck's done.
I mean, obviously the Georgia Tech game, does that not cause any pause? I mean, didn't Ole Miss beat them somewhat handily?
Yeah, I don't know. They came back and they beat Texas. Is that Carson Beck? Is that number because of Carson Beck
well,
as well?
Certainly it
has to be.
Yeah, it has a big impact.
Yeah, but I guess here's my point. In a game, usually the line is set to where both sides feel like, I could take Notre Dame. Okay, I could take Georgia. That line feels like people will make fun of those lines and bet Georgia because it's big bad Georgia and big bad SEC. That's how I feel like that line will go up quite a bit if that's the real line.
I can't believe you thought 16.5.
Oh, yeah, 16.5. I'm surprised it's not.
Man,
I thought I nailed it.
If Kurt Cignetti hears that, he's going to have to scrap his, how to pump up his team today before practice. He's going to start there with you.
I know.
There goes any chance we had of getting Cignetti on the show next week.
Well, I wasn't counting on it anyway, to be quite honest.
That is probably accurate.
No offense.
On that
okay,
end.
well, listen, I'm wrong. I would love to be wrong. I would love if Indiana won and they went in there and beat Georgia, KB, I cannot tell you, and I don't hate Georgia or the SEC, but I cannot tell you the happiness that would bring me, and the happiness that would bring so many hundreds of thousands of people that watch college football and are tired of the SEC elitism.
I told you this, I think it was about a week, maybe a little over a week ago at this point. I'm watching the Notre Dame at Georgia basketball game. Okay, Notre Dame at Georgia basketball. Yeah. And they continue to pan to the Georgia student section, and the Georgia thing, they've got their football pads with the spikes on it.
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of the big Georgia thing. So I've got a couple just absolute idiots in the student section with their spikes on. There's 20 seconds to go. Everybody's emptying the bench. The game's over. And what are they chanting at Micah Shrewsbury's team?
I already know what they're chanting. SEC, baby.
SEC!
SEC.
SEC!
You're damn right. Paul Feinbaum will
Do
faint.
Big Ten fans not chant Big Ten?
No.
Do we need to start doing that?
I mean, you guys can do it. Not you guys, I guess, but Big Ten guys can do it. Paul Feinbaum will pass out on air. If they go to a lines maker and they're like, oh, yeah, it's a 4-point game, 5-point game with Indiana and or Notre Dame. I think that's the one that would get them the most. That Notre Dame. Boy, they will. If that happens, Corbin, you got to be ready. You may not be in here filling in for Mark, but it will be SEC people going at the throat of Kevin Bowen, mocking his Notre Dame team.
Speaking of picks, let's do ours right now. It is the game of the year for the Indianapolis Colts, and to go over it one more time, Denver favored by 4 and over under of 44. Weather looks very nice.
It does.
For Sunday, 425 out in Denver. We're talking temperatures in the low 50s, sunny, no precipitation on that end. Corbin Lingenfelter, I walked into the studio this morning, and you presented a legal pad of notes to me on the Colts-Broncos game. You're ready to go. Can we get a pick from you? And by the way, Corbin, before the year started, he made it very clear on these airwaves the Pacers would not be good this season.
I think he said they might not win 40 games.
And I laughed. I believe you laughed.
I scoffed at him.
And right now, Corbin Lingenfelter is getting the last laugh on that. So whatever this pick is about to be, don't turn your head at it just yet. Corbin, what do you got?
35-20 Denver.
That's a big one.
Because
It's a lot of points. I like it.
of the fact that Denver's offense is scoring 36 points per game this season. In the last 3 games they played, and their defense is only allowing 19. The Colts 19.6 points per game in the last 3, and they needed game-winning drives against New England and the Jets to get to 2-1 in the last 3.
Corbin Lingenfelter is going big on that one. I'm not going that many points, but I am going with the same team. Now, and selfishly, I'm trying to keep up a record here. I've predicted 10 straight
good.
Colts games correct
you've
here.
been good.
We'll see if I can make it 11 in a row. Our listening audience will hope I'm wrong. I'm going to go Denver 23-20. I think their defense is just too sound to fall apart over the course of the game. Now, I do think Anthony Richardson's a different element than they've seen, but still, I think their defense is just too solid to wilt late like we have seen. I mean, the Colts have won 2 games in the last month and a half. They're 1-point wins over the Jets and Patriots. Their fan bases hate their teams, and their defenses and their teams in general, I think, eventually wilted. I don't think we'll see that from Denver. Now, I think it'll be much closer. Much closer. I'll go 23-20 Broncos.
All right, so I hate you, and this is the problem. I think I even gave you this yesterday. I was going to go 23-20, but we can't have the same score. We just can't have the same score.
Are you going Broncos too?
I'm going with the Broncos as well.
Yeah.
We can't have the same score. Give me 27-20, a late touchdown. What I would worry about here with the spread, and I would not bet the spread on this game, but what I would worry about is, and Corbin, didn't you have this, pick sixes? The Broncos have had some pick sixes. The Broncos have turned interceptions and turnovers, and they've done something with them. What also scares me is, the bend but don't break defense can work to keep you in a game against the Patriots and Jets. It didn't work against the Lions, and the Lions played a B- game that day. And so that's what worries me here. If you keep letting Bo Nix go down the field on the road, eventually you're going to get in trouble. If you're playing 12 yards off a receiver and they're getting the ball out quickly and you're just giving up yards, then your offense, it doesn't have as many opportunities. So I'm staying away from this game betting-wise. I will say I was going to go 23-20, but we can't have the same score. Everyone will make fun of us. J&V will come on there at 3 o'clock and make fun of me. So I'll go 27-20. I do think Denver wins. What worries me, last thing I'll say is, I thought, and this was with Joe Flacco, I thought the Colts would be much better against Minnesota. I thought they would bring it against the Vikings. It worries me that I feel the same here, that the Colts are not going to go and lay down like they have and just get run over like they have in some games. That's what worries me here, is I have my same feeling that I have against Minnesota, and obviously we know what happened there. But 27-20, and I guess the question will be, will anyone at the station pick the Broncos? Eddie Garrison, you going to do it?
Pick the Colts, you mean?
Or pick the Colts. Is anybody going to pick the Colts?
Yeah, I think some
You think
will.
somebody will?
Urgency-wise, I'm just kind of curious that, because, I've tried to think about this analogy in my head. It might be a poor one. If you want to call this the final exam, Andy, the Broncos walk into the game with a C on their grade right now. The Colts walk into it with like a D-. Both teams need it, but the Colts really, really need it. Denver needs it too.
Right.
I mean, if you look at their final 3 games, but the Colts really need it. I mean, the playoff odds, again, 65% with a win, 10% with a loss. For Denver, it's like 88% with a win, 40% with a loss. And remember, they have a short week next week. They go to the Chargers here on a short week, then have Cincinnati, then have Kansas City as well. So just the overall bye week urgency for these two teams. The Colts have been unable to win this game. They were unable to win it last year in Week 18. You go back to 2021, they had a couple chances to win this sort of game, and they didn't do it. How will they respond this time?
Yeah, I would even go a little bit to that Cincinnati, but definitely that Atlanta game last year. It's not the same as this week. It's not the same as the Texans game, but they really needed those games. I think what also would worry me if the Colts lose this game. You mentioned the grading system that you gave. They're going to know now the chance for them to make the playoffs is pretty bleak. What does that mean the last 3 weeks? In other words, you lose to one of these duds in the final 3 games of the season. Doesn't matter. The fans may say, well, that's fine. Get a better draft pick. I don't know if I'm quite there, but you've had the carrot all year out in front of you, either AFC South or they've been in position. They've been the 7th team for many weeks this season. If you've had that playoff carrot out in front of you, boy, the percentages go down if you lose on Sunday. They go way down. So
I do have a game on Sunday that I'm unsure what Colts' rooting interest should be. I want to ask you about that on the other side.
We'll do that. Plus, holiday shopping's picking up. I have a plea for guys out there. Is that okay? We'll do both of those things. We'll do it on the other side. Reminder, Matt Taylor going to join us coming up in 15.
Voice of the Colts, Matt Taylor, in 10. Best wishes to Rick Venturi. I know a little under the weather. Unfortunately, won't be able to make the trip to Denver here for Sunday's massive game. I think it goes without saying how much I know that hurts Coach Venturi. So best wishes to him and Sherry to get better. And hopefully we'll see them coming up a week from Sunday and see Coach in the press box as Colts return home, play the Titans. It'll be Joe Wright out of the bullpen for that matchup. Again, Matt Taylor will talk with us in about 10. Texans-Dolphins, 1 o'clock Sunday, Andy.
I knew that's where you were going to go. Texans-Dolphins.
Rooting interest where? And while
It's a great
you think
question.
about it, let me set it up. Right now, the Texans' magic number to win the division is 2.
Right. So they could wrap it up this week.
So they could. They need combination of Colts losses and Texans wins to claim the division title for another year. Their final 4 games, to point it out, they have the Dolphins, of course, at Kansas City next Saturday, and then they'll be part of the Christmas Day game. That's Baltimore at home, and then at Tennessee to close out the year.
It's a difficult schedule, very difficult, and they're injured.
2-2, 1-3 doesn't seem that far-fetched. Now, again, if they went 1-3, the Colts would have to go, 4-0? You got to make up 3 games? Is that what it is on them?
Yeah, I believe so. It's 2 games in the column.
But they have the head-to-head.
But they have the head-to-head as well, yeah.
So, again, do you want belief in the division still? Or do you say, no, just get rid of Miami? Now, to update you on Miami, same record as the Colts. Obviously, the Colts have the head-to-head tiebreaker from earlier this season. So right now, the Colts are above them. But if you look at Miami's close, I would argue it's pretty manageable.
Yeah, it is.
They're going to get whatever San Francisco looks like coming up on Sunday. At Cleveland, which, sure.
Maybe Jameis can have a fun game, but, Miami will be favored in that game going into Cleveland, you would imagine.
And then the Jets to end the year.
The only bugaboo for them is Browns and Jets is you could have, like, the snow game or the really cold game, and the Miami Dolphins just absolutely melt away when it gets cold outside. I mean, they just become a terrible football team.
So part of me thinks the Dolphins will still lose just because they have a couple cold weather games. And also, there are some weird 3-team tiebreakers at 9 and 8 that actually help out the Colts. I'm not ready to reveal those and
I was about
or
to say God bless you
talk
for knowing
about
that.
them.
Okay.
But where should rooting interest lie?
Most of the time, I feel like 99% of the time, I would say let's get Miami out of the way. Like, in other words, I'm cheering for a team that needs to get the first overall pick or the second pick. So I'm cheering for teams just to get out of the way so I can have the first or second pick. If you're a Colts fan, don't you want Miami to be out of the way? That's how I normally would view it. But I feel like, given that the Colts so much is about this weekend, if they lose to Denver, they have, 10% chance? You've only said it 100 times. To make the playoffs, I almost feel like the second way they could do that would be the South. Am I rooting for Miami here over Houston? I might be actually kind of backing up what I normally would not do. And I think I'm saying you'd have a better chance after this weekend with the AFC South. Houston's injured, man. Yeah, they got big problems.
Yeah, Houston is really banged up, but boy, they really would have to fall on their face. And the Colts have to go 4-0.
But you could see the Texans losing in Kansas City and the Ravens for sure, right? I mean, I don't expect them to win either one of those games.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess.
I mean, it's bleak. Don't get me wrong. We're splitting hairs.
I mean, what are your odds to win the division right now? Like 10% probably?
Yeah.
Something along those lines.
So the percentages are probably the same, and it just kills
honestly,
me.
It probably boils down to this. If you are an internally optimistic Colts fan, you're rooting for the Dolphins. If you're more of a realistic to pessimistic Colts fan,
right,
you're probably saying, just get rid of the
bleeping Dolphins.
Get rid of the Dolphins.
Yeah, get rid of them. And that's how I felt most of the time.
And there is part of me, it's like you got swept by Houston and you lost in Jacksonville. You don't deserve to win the division.
Well, you're right. No, you're right. I think there is a chance. In fact, I think it's a probability that it will be widely considered the Houston Texans are the worst team in the postseason. Do you think that's the case?
Oh, I don't know about outright team.
Well, I'm just saying the worst team. Like, you could say the NFC West, but, Seattle's won 4 straight games.
If somehow they find a miracle and they protect Stroud and Nico Collins can go win a game.
They can still win a game. It would be a home game. Yeah, it would be a home playoff game.
You got a shopping dilemma?
Well, I was going to throw this out there because, I tried to have
Because
everything.
don't ask me. If you think I'm going to offer some great insight and great intel, then
here's the thing. This is just, there's a lot of men listening, and you don't want to be. Now, I have known men who have waited to the very last second, but if you've noticed, if you've ordered something offline, if you've ordered something on Amazon or any of these different websites, it's taking a long time for things to get to your house, right? It just is. You need to order like today. That would be my plea for men, is you need to order this weekend, but you need to order, if you're ordering something.
What about brick and mortar it?
No, brick
Head
and
to the
mortar is
mall.
fine. Hey, listen, I have no problem with that. Go to the mall. God bless you going to the mall on a Saturday. We've all been there, I'm sure, at some point. But if you're going to order something online, which such a huge percentage of Christmas gifts are from, guys, do not wait till Wednesday of next week. You need to order this weekend, and if you can order in the next 24 hours, you need to do it. You understand what I'm saying? KB, I don't know if this applies to you. I don't know if you're a guy that's going to push it to the last second. You pray the present gets there the night before, but you don't do it.
I
do
needed
not
to hear this
do
from
it.
you.
Yeah, do. And I've been guilty of this. I mean, even last Christmas, I'm pacing. Is it going to make it? Is it going to make it? And it's not that big of a deal, obviously. Me and my wife, it's like whatever, But if there is something that you want to get there, maybe it's a kid. I don't know. Okay, if it's a child, it's going to matter to them. You need to take care of it, and you need to take care of it this weekend. Get it done. Right? There's no football this weekend on Saturday.
No,
there's
we
a
got
lot of
Army,
basketball,
Navy.
but there's a lot of basketball this weekend. But if you're going to order, like I just ordered something last night, I'm going to get it on the 21st, which is fine. But you're already starting to push it.
Yeah, you're starting to play with fire. That was a smart plea. Smart plea.
Yeah, like I'll give you for instance, we got Mason one of those nugget couches. Have you ever heard of those things?
Oh yeah, you're asking me about that.
Yeah. You can crawl around on everything else.
Make it look like an animal.
But it did arrive, but it got backed up twice. Now imagine if you're ordering today, tomorrow, or Sunday, or whatever it is. Just imagine.
Well, that's where Santa comes through.
Yes, you're spot on. Yeah, you're right. You're right. What's Max getting? I don't want. You know what? Don't say that. Just in case
Max
the kids are listening.
asked for a motorcycle from Santa.
Oh wow.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know you guys were a Bobby Petrino family.
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
You know me.
A motorcycle.
I just ride the Harley down Meridian each day.
You come across as a big motorcycle guy out of everyone at the fan.
Can you imagine me on a motorcycle? Coach Venturi on the motorcycle, right?
Corbin will hate this. He will scowl at this. The only times I've ever been on a motorcycle, I have been essentially holding on to another man. Not essentially, I have been holding on to another man.
Boy, I
had a girlfriend whose dad was
I
a big
hate that
into
we're up
motorcycles.
against it, but I got to hear more.
Well, no, that's it. I had a buddy who rode a motorcycle for a little bit, so I'm like holding on to him. Plus, I don't trust him driving. He's not exactly Vin Diesel out there. He's not Fast and the Furious or Jason Bourne on a motorcycle. And then the other times, I had a girlfriend who's actually a big Steeler fan. This guy was like a manly man. Steeler fan. Pennsylvania guy.
Snot in the mustache like Bill Cowher in a Week 16 game.
He looked like he was in Bill Cowher's family for the most part, okay? And he rode motorcycles, Harleys, and so if I went out, I'm hanging on to him. I swear to you, I'm hanging on.
I'm shocked that he
scared to death.
Shocked that he let you do that.
Well, I don't think he liked it.
Is that why the relationship didn't work out?
No, it's one of them probably, yeah. I'm not manly enough. So, and hopefully Max gets this motorcycle. Interesting there.
We'll see. Better be a good one.
Yeah, well, we'll take a break. Coming up on the other side, voice of the Colts, Matt Taylor. He joins us next.
There's a lot of, I guess, nitrates within, beets that help you recover. The endurance, you can last longer in terms of physical exertion and things like that when it comes to exercise. So, yeah, man, some Dwight Schrute beet juice going to be on the plane coming up on Sunday.
Matt, I'm so happy you said that. I was thinking, am I going to bring up Dwight Schrute? But then I was just going to move on to how did the Colts get the win on Sunday? So thank you, Matt, for bringing that
Dwight's
up.
face on the side of a beet juice can. Who needs V8s when you got that?
It also sounds like we all need to be drinking beet juice.
Well, yeah, when I heard last longer, I was like, okay, well, potentially that could be beneficial on that end. It is surprising to me, Matt. I don't know. I think, you guys talked with Bill Brooks, and, we chatted with Reggie Wayne yesterday. Like, they were adamant, like, it is a big deal. I don't know, maybe the 2022 game, a short week, Thursday night, I guess I don't really remember how much the topic was discussed then, playing in Denver. But, to hear it from, Bill Brooks and, even Reggie Wayne, it's like, okay, I don't know. If you look at Denver's home numbers, they've been pretty good at home this year. Maybe it'll be something, maybe it'll be nothing.
No, I think there's something. I mean, I think it depends on who you are. I think it depends on what position you play. But, anytime you play in Denver, that topic always gets brought up, and you start asking around guys in the locker room. And I was surprised because you're right. In 2022, it was a short week. It didn't, the topics of conversation just didn't last as long, I guess, on a short week. But, I talked to DeForest Buckner sort of off the record yesterday, and he said, yeah, it's a real thing. When he was with San Francisco, they had a couple of joint practices with the Broncos a couple of years, and he said you really start to feel it on day 2 when you're out there. But, Bill Brooks said, he feels it in his chest. He gets real winded, heavy breathing, so he can attest to it. You mentioned Reggie Wayne. I think the biggest thing, as we all know, when you play at altitude is just the thin air and the ball carrying, I should say. And, Matt Gay, I asked him this week because I looked it up, and the numbers said he's never kicked in Denver. So I wanted to double check that with him. So I went up to him yesterday, I should say, in the locker room. I said, hey, you've never kicked in Denver, right? And he goes, no, I have. I go, you have? He goes, yeah, it was a preseason game. So I go, okay, well, it's a little bit different with the magnitude of this one in December and the regular season and all of that. But he, for what it's worth, will be kicking in Denver in a regular season game for the first time. But he said, when he was with the Rams in the preseason, yeah, the ball carries. You can get another 3-4 yards, at distance-wise out of your kicks, which is always a factor, obviously, in a big game like this. I think is going to come down to the wire. So I was a little bit surprised this week to hear just the candid nature from everybody involved that's played out there that is attested to just how real and how much of an impact playing in the altitude does have on you during the course of a 60-minute football game.
And boy, Matt, you mentioned just a couple yards extra on a field goal kick. That would have been all the difference in the world in that New England game. With what was the slide coming up?
Oh my God!
Just a couple yards short. Go ahead. Sorry.
Can we go back to that game just real quick?
Sure.
I'm thinking, all right, there's 4 seconds left. They got the ball at the minus 40-yard line, and I know they got the timeouts left. That they actually had 2. I think at that time. I can't remember. But at any rate, they actually run a play, and the guy slides down for a gain of 10 up to the 50. I'm thinking, how do they have time to run this play and call a timeout? And then the guy kicks it from 68, and I'm thinking, oh, my God, this is good. It looks too good, way too close for comfort. And then the ball lands, right around the pad of the goalpost. So direction-wise, it would have been awesome. But, with it landing at the pad of the goalpost, that's really, if you do the math, it's only 3.5 yards away from actually going through. So from 65, 66, that probably would have been
unreal.
Good. And
it's unreal.
Thank goodness it was a 68-yard field goal in that situation.
Matt Taylor with us, voice of the Colts here on the Payless Liquors Hotline on this Football Friday. Any gut feeling how the Colts play? What kind of game are you expecting? And then we'll get to Taylor's tidbits here in a second.
Yeah, I think on offense, I think you're going to see a steady dose of Richardson and Taylor in the backfield. I think, and I don't know what the propensity was, last time out, but just if you watch the film and you go back and look at that game against New England, there was a lot of running the football out of the pistol formation, and I liked it. And I think there's going to be there's more of an explanation to it schematically than just trying to get Jonathan Taylor with a head start and a full head of steam and running downhill. But I think that's the biggest advantage of that formation. And you can still do the RPO stuff, the play action stuff, and the read zone and the zone read stuff out of that. But I just like that better, generally speaking, than, Taylor lining up to the right or left in the shotgun of Richardson. So, again, there's more to it than what I just said, but I just love the fact that it was kind of a ground and pound approach out of the pistol formation against New England. And I think Richardson and Taylor, you're going to run those guys until the wheels fall off in this game, and then hopefully for the rest of the season, staying in playoff contention mode. So I mean, it's the numbers obviously bear it out, where Richardson is averaging right around 9.5 carries per game since coming back from the benching, and I think that's the sweet spot for him. Is key third downs, got to have it situations, fourth down, red zone. You're going to hand the football off, or keep the football, I should say, in Richardson's hands when you just need one of your best players on offense to go make a play, a la that 2-point conversion against the Patriots. So I think it's going to be a heavy, steady dose and a concentration in the running game, and try to pound the Broncos up front, which is a tall order, right? They're really good at stopping the run. They've only given up over 100 yards once in the last 7 games. So that's their strength. But the Colts need to win time of possession in this game, and that's something that they just obviously routinely haven't done this season. I mean, they're losing time of possession on average this season by over 7.5 minutes. But I think that in order for them to win that game on Sunday, that time of possession either has to be in the Colts' favor, or it's got to be pretty even. And in order to do that, they got to convert on third down. They got to run the ball and stay on schedule.
That is the voice of the Colts, Matt Taylor. It'll be him and Joe Wright coming up on Sunday, along with Larry Overton. Unfortunately, Rick Venturi, little under the weather there, so it'll be Joe Wright's out of the bullpen here for this must-have Week 15 matchup. Corbin, cue the music. Matt Taylor, Taylor's Tidbits, Friday the 13th version.
Here we go. We're getting spooky on a Friday. I want to talk about Bo Nix. Great rookie season, leads the NFL among rookies in passing yards, passing touchdowns, and passer rating. But you know what he doesn't lead the league in, fellas? Cursing.
Whoa.
Bo Nix does not curse. No swear words.
You can't trust those people. You can't trust those people. I'm going to change my pick. I picked Broncos earlier. I might go Colts now.
Yeah, Colts 23-0. How about that?
Hey, I mean, this is a throwback to Phillip Rivers. You got a lot of golly gees and a lot of shucks and a lot of aw nuts. This traces back to his upbringing by his parents.
And he's from Alabama, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
Back in Phillip Rivers' neck of the woods.
And he grew up around sports. He grew up in a locker room, which is just it's a feeding ground for a lot of fraternity stuff and a lot of it can get kind of down and dirty, as we all know, inside the locker room. His dad was a coach in high school, still coaches high school football in Alabama, but he just believes that he wants to keep things clean. There's something positive about the words that he uses. So I really respect it, too. And he comes from a great football family, like I mentioned. His dad coached high school football in Alabama. His brother, Caleb Nix, he won the ACC championship game with Clemson last weekend. And then his older brother won the Big Ten championship with Oregon. So it's a really, really cool story. And, he was the 6th quarterback taken in the draft, the 12th overall pick. It was kind of like the last guy left over for the Broncos who needed a quarterback. And I think it's cool. They're making it work with his personality, his skill set, and a good marriage there between he and Sean Payton. And I think Sean does all the cursing for Bo, because Bo's pretty clean, and his play on the field this year has been pretty clean, too.
I'm afraid Riley Leonard is like that as well. And
I
don't
think
know.
He is?
I just don't know if I trust him late in the fourth quarter. That's probably tells you more about me as a human.
I was about to say,
than anything. But boy, Matt Taylor, I did not have you leading off the tidbit of the mouth of Bo Nix, but credit to you. That's why you're the best.
Well, everybody leads in different ways, so you got to tip your cap there. All right, here's another one. Did you fellas know that the Colts have won 6 games this season? All 6 of their games have been tight wins. But in their 6 victories this year, they're winning by an average of 3.2 points per game, which is the lowest number in the NFL. The Colts lead the league in one-score wins, and the Broncos lead the NFL in wins by more than one score with 7 of those victories. And I think this is going to be a tight game. It's a big game. You've got 2 quarterbacks in this game that have played in big games before. And actually, Bo Nix has played in a couple of Iron Bowls. He's played in the Pac-12 title game and some other big bowl games. But he's actually almost 2 years older than Anthony Richardson. Despite Nix being a rookie and Richardson being in year number 2, it's Nix who's actually a more seasoned player. Nix played in 61 career games in college compared to Anthony Richardson's 13. And that is the most games started at quarterback in college in NCAA history. So, again, I mean, despite the fact that he's a rookie and he's still a young player, he's an older rookie, if you will, right? He's almost 25 years old. But I think the Colts can throw some things at him, and they're going to need to, especially in the second half when the game gets on the line a little bit. Use this bye week to your advantage, throw in some wrinkles defensively, try to confuse Bo Nix, speed him up as best you can. But the pass rush has to be big in this game. But that's another wrinkle, too, of this contest with Bo Nix. He doesn't take sacks. He's only been sacked 19 times, gets the ball out fast. He's got deceptive mobility. So I'm really fascinated to see how this young quarterback dynamic shakes out in what is essentially a playoff game magnitude-wise for both of these teams. Which young quarterback is going to make more plays in crunch time in the fourth quarter, which I think this game inevitably comes down to.
Something Andy and I were talking about earlier, Matt. Neither team has really beaten many marquee opponents. Pittsburgh would be the one for Indy, I guess Tampa for Denver. But yet, yes. Denver, 7 of their 8 wins, 2 scores, and you just laid it out there. I mean, the Colts only have none 2-score wins. So there's part of me, it's like, okay, I guess you could look at that and say, well, Denver's more impressive. Okay. You also could say, if this is a 1-score game, late on Sunday, the Colts have thrived in those situations, whereas Denver, that's kind of foreign to them.
Yeah, they being Denver, they've only played in 5 1-score games. The Colts have played in 11, which is, again, the most in the NFL. And what I like the fact is I don't think the Colts are going to be overwhelmed by the crowd. I mean, it's a great home field advantage. I mean, what's the number? They've sold out like 440-plus straight games dating back to like 1970. But within that, I mean, 2 of the last 3 games for the Colts have been walk-off road wins and game-winning drives led by Anthony Richardson. So I don't think you're going to see any panic in that regard. But, yes, both of these teams have feasted on bad teams. All of the wins for the Broncos are against teams under 500, and the Colts only have 1 of their 6 wins against a team that's over 500, and that was the Patriots back in whatever it was, week 4, week 5, which seems like so long ago. But both of these teams are rested, coming off the bye, and, I can't wait. I can't wait to get on that plane and just see how it all unfolds coming up on Sunday.
Again, he is the voice of the Colts. He is Matt Taylor. It'll be him, Joe Wrights, Rick Venturi, a little under the weather, Lara Overton coming up on Sunday. Our coverage 1:30, is that right? I'm trying to do the time thing in my head. Is that right, Andy?
Yeah, 1:30 to 3:30 with the local show, and then we start the network at 3:30 with a 4:25 kick.
Yeah, reminder, and Matt, I know you know this, Hank FM will have the entire broadcast, pregame, game, and postgame. The Fan will have the broadcast, all the pregame up until about 4:25, and then we'll pick it up after the Pacers as well. But Hank FM will have the entire thing.
And Matt, I want to make sure I give a shout out to you. You are certainly one of the few I know that when their IU football fandom reaches its peak coming up a week from Friday, you've been there since day one. I think you had a Blake Powers jersey or a Brett Law jersey back in the day. The DiNardo years still keep you up at night. I don't know if your father was a Tim Wilbur fan back in the day, but
no.
Congrats, Matt Taylor. Your IU fandom has been rewarded. There's not a lot of you, but you are certainly one of them, so congrats on that.
Well, yeah, I've been there since day one, going to games down there with Pops. That's just kind of what we did. We'd have CYO practice on Saturday morning, and then that would get over around 10:30, and then we'd hop down there and watch IU Illinois on Big Ten Plus. Or not, remember, whatever that was. Remember, it was like on Channel 4, you used to have like the spillover game.
Oh, sure.
It was,
sure.
It was always like IU Illinois or IU Minnesota at noon. The regional broadcast with Wayne Larrabee back in the day. But
You're damn right. Oh yeah.
But I like to think I've been there a long time. There's certainly people that have been there longer than me. But I was 6-7 years old. My first IU memories on the old Astro turf with the red paint in the end zones and the old IU logo there at midfield at Memorial Stadium. So I think Trent Green was the quarterback of my first game I ever went to.
Well,
maybe Chris Ditto. I can't remember. But
look at that. The Ditto family getting some love here.
Yeah.
Will there be any correspondence between you two during the game? I mean, this is IU and Notre Dame. I mean, it's you two.
No,
before or after the game or anything?
We got to keep it friendly because Kevin, I think, has an outside chance of me maybe picking up a ticket. So I got to be cordial at least for another 6 days here.
Yeah,
so,
I have too much.
I don't know where we stand on that yet.
Okay.
I have too much respect for Matt Taylor. Way too much to send him any, just stupid text messages like that.
So you guys would go together? Is that?
We are open. We are open to any and all options.
Fair enough.
I'd go anywhere with Kevin, to be honest with you. But, I mean, Notre Dame, IU, that would be top of the list.
Now, I was going to say, if IU had a mascot, I think Matt Taylor would sign up for that to get in the building coming up here a week from Friday.
I'll wear the bison head, whatever you need me to do.
Boy, you know what? And now that for some reason I'm looking up like pictures of old IU jerseys. They need to bring back those old Randall L jerseys.
Oh, see, I 1,000% disagree with you.
Oh, well, there goes any chance I had him sitting next to you
there
week from Friday.
The worst logo in the history of sports is the oval IU. The Cam Cameron.
It's bad.
He was trying to differentiate the football program from the rest of the athletic department, and it's the most generic, awful looking. I know there's like a cult following for that logo, and I don't get it because it's so boring. I mean, it looked like I designed it in 3rd grade, and then I just gave it to, the logo department, and they just slapped it on the side of the helmet.
Well, you know how
Matt Taylor at St. Jude, he's got the paint document up on his computer here.
You know how it is. Sometimes that old ugly stuff comes all the way back around to where it's vintage.
Oh,
and now
hell yeah!
It's in
That's
now.
what I mean.
So yeah, it is ugly though. It is pretty ugly. I think I'm with you on that one.
They had the black helmet.
Oh yeah, I'm looking at it.
Yeah, it was not a good look. Not a good look. We can do better than that graphically, if that's a word. Come on now. Cam Cameron back in the day. That was like what, mid 90s?
Oh, sure.
Late 90s.
Sure.
We need to close the book on that one.
Matt Taylor, plenty of opinions on IU football, plenty of opinions on Reds baseball, and he'll have you covered coming up here. It is the lone 425er of this football season, and it is as big as it can get here in week 15. Colts and Broncos from Mile High. Mr. Taylor, always enjoy it. Safe travels.
All right, boys. Have a great weekend. Thank you.
That's the voice of the Colts right there, Matt Taylor.
Now, obviously, this will be a storyline that we will follow, whether it's you and Matt or just you, or however, if you get into the building on Friday, will be a storyline the next week for us here on the program. If you were to get a ticket, you're off the air here at 10 o'clock. What time would you consider leaving to get to South Bend if you end up going to the game? And I know it's a long shot. I understand that. But how early do you want to be there in South Bend with the tailgate open and a beer in your hand? That's my question.
I will say this. The potential opportunity to score a ticket could come from someone that maybe doesn't want their status revealed on air.
Okay, fair enough.
But momentum is building.
Oh, I like this.
Momentum is building.
This is exciting.
Now, again,
Okay,
I need to make sure that I cover
Sure.
any and all behind the scenes
Right?
here.
Sure.
But momentum is building. Rosie is an angel in the nativity play coming up at noon next Friday.
Oh, boy.
So
I should have asked about that.
dad duties
Oh, boy.
have got to be checked off the box.
But that's done by 1 o'clock, right?
Well,
1:15, 1:30.
I can't imagine, unless
Right.
Joseph and Mary have added some lines over the years. I can't imagine
Fair
it's going to
enough.
be,
Well, yeah.
maybe the donkey gets stage fright and we have to, continue it a little bit longer.
But you're going to have to schmooze with some parents. You're going to have to say hi, give her a hug, take a photo, do that entire thing.
Correct.
So you got at least an hour there. If not
Correct.
an hour
But
and 10,
I would
15
like
minutes.
to think that US 31, my presence could be graced at a somewhat early afternoon hour.
Yeah. What's the Colts' normal schedule on a Friday? I mean, it's nothing really, right?
Today, what am I out there? 11:50 for practice. Steichen's like, well, you know what? And I hate, nothing can change Steichen. But next Friday,
Yeah. What is it? Is
I
it the
think he would
Giants game?
understand this. I hope this doesn't get back to
Is
him.
it the Giants game?
But screw him.
I'm
You know
with
what? And nothing against Shane Steichen.
What's he going to say in 5 minutes?
But we got more important things next Friday.
You do. I mean, do you need another
I can't
question
be
on Will
worried
Levis?
about him about, well, Will Levis can make some big plays with his arm, and Juju Brents is progressing well. I don't need to hear that next Friday.
If you're out by 2:00, you're in South Bend by 4:30-ish. You're parked by 5:30-ish. You got 2.5 hours to get to where you need to be for an 8:00 tip-off.
Here we go.
Kickoff, whatever.
Here we go. The Pat Kuntz Bowl, baby.
Boy, that's a long Friday. I like that.
My percentage of IU fans in that building is starting to rise. I think it'll be 70-30 at best, Notre Dame.
Okay, I meant to bring this up. This is more for next week, and we got to get to a check down. Next week we'll talk about this. I'm going to get more information on it, but I saw an Ohio State thread. They're hosting next weekend.
I did see this.
They're hosting Tennessee. That the college football playoff is taking over some of the in-game entertainment and like the pump-up videos.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not going to be like a normal Notre Dame
You will hear the
or
IU
Ohio
fight
State
song.
game. You will hear the fight song. Yeah, it's going to be more of a neutral site game, but it's in it's there it's in South Bend, it's in Columbus, it's at Penn State, whatever it may be. But it's going to have a little bit more of a feel of a.
I don't like that.
I don't like that either. In fact, I hate that.
I find it weird when a couple of years ago Notre Dame baseball upset Tennessee in the tournament. Tennessee was ranked like number 1, and they do the best of 3 super regionals.
I remember that was that great Tennessee team. Yeah.
And like Notre Dame hits a home run, and next thing you know, I like hear the Notre Dame fight song on the TV. I'm like, wait, what? And that's part of how the NCAA does their tournament. They provide the music. So yes, based off what I've understood, you will hear the IU fight song. They'll come out to like the IU intro video.
Yep, they'll have a video and everything.
So that means if Notre Dame wins, can they plant the flag on the neutral field?
That's a great point. Well, that means if Tennessee wins and they plant the flag, it's not going to be a felony, even though that politician wants it to be a felony.
Well, the other thing
I
thought
neutral site game.
you were going to bring up about Ohio State, and we'll give our popcorn games coming up here in a second for Week 15, and then close it out with the Freebie Friday pop quiz. I heard that some Tennessee fans got access to the Ohio State ticket promo code.
Oh, of course they did. Yeah, that's the good stuff. And so they bought a bunch
There
of.
is nothing like college sports, folks. There is nothing like. Bill Belichick is saying his first words were "beat Duke" in his life yesterday at the press conference.
One of the great lies of all time.
Can you imagine when we get the first dancing recruit gif of Bill Belichick and the recruit, Brian Kelly?
Well, I was going to say, is Brian Kelly, which recruit was it where he was like holding the lower back of a recruit? And
Did he transfer?
I think he did. But it was early on. It was like his third day on the job there at LSU.
Somebody asked Belichick yesterday, the presser, about him recruiting in-home, making the home visits with these recruits, and listening to Belichick dodge the question was one of the funnier ones that I've heard of.
That's gonna be who Michael Lombardi and Steve Belichick.
It's a entire staff operation, and if I need to do that,
there's gonna be a couple. He's gonna have to make the trek to Texas or Georgia or Alabama or wherever the hell he's gonna go.
Brian says you gained the time change. No. South Bend is Eastern.
Yeah, no, it's Eastern.
Trust me, not many people realize South Bend is in the state of Indiana. Clearly, JMV. It is Eastern time.
It is.
8 o'clock kick, ESPN, Sean McDonough, Greg McElroy. I think that's our best crew. Molly McGrath.
Yep, I would agree.
All right, before we get to our games to pick here, her hardest, easiest, and popcorn of Week 15, let's hit a morning check down.
Champion UConn. Be there by visiting butlersports.com/buy tickets.
Yeah, no clip for this check down, but obviously it's the big one. It's Colts on the road taking on the Denver Broncos. 4.5 points. That continues to be the spread. We have seen some movement upwards on the over-under as well. Right now, about 44.5, opened at 42.5. 425 on CBS. That's the game of the year for the Colts. As for the radio coverage, beginning at 1:30, both the Fan and Hank FM will have all your pregame coverage. Hank FM will have it all day. We'll have the pregame, the game, and all the postgame. The Fan will have the pregame starting at 1:30 up until the Pacers at about 4:30, and then we'll go to Pacers and come back after the Pacers to what is ever left of the Colts. But it's Colts-Broncos. It's the one we've talked about, and for what it's worth, all three of us here this morning did pick the Denver Broncos to win.
We've sat here on this Friday and had injury questions before. I don't have any. going into today's final practice of the week. I think Ashton Doolin and Braden Smith will be ruled out, and I think Josh Downs will play. I assume Ryan Kelly will play, so I think it's pretty quiet on that end. We'll get confirmation from Shane Steichen later this morning. Speaking of the Pacers, tonight in Philly, it looks like the Sixers are healthy, which we haven't said that very often this season. They have won 4 of 5, so is that indeed Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey and Paul George? It looks like that. Vegas clearly thinks so. They've got the Sixers favored by 5 or 6 for this one. Joel Embiid has absolutely owned the Pacers in his career, 31-11. He averages more points against the Pacers than any team in the Eastern Conference. 7 o'clock tonight, and then it'll be the Pelicans coming up on Sunday, and then off to a short West road trip. They'll only play 3 games out West starting Thursday there, and then it is a loaded end of December here for the Pacers.
College basketball, Hoosiers in action tonight, 8 o'clock on Fox. Are on the road against Nebraska. Nebraska favored by about 4.5 there. And then, of course, coming up on Saturday, we love it. It's the Indy Classic. You have Purdue, number 11, versus Texas A&M, and Buzz Williams at number 17. That one, again, noon, CBS. And then the game after that, 2:30, Wisconsin and Butler, Wisconsin, number 20 in the country. They did lose earlier this week to Illinois, and obviously Butler, they need a win. I mean, after another rough loss this week, they need a win. You can catch that one on the Big Ten Network.
Just something Purdue-wise I'm curious about. Their turnover issues have been in both road games. Marquette, Penn State. So far, neutral floor San Diego, at home, no turnover issues. How does it look against an attacking Buzz Williams team and an attacking Bruce Pearl team coming up next weekend? Other things to note from me, no surprise here, Kurt Cignetti, your Home Depot Coach of the Year. That was announced last night there. Beyond that should be unanimous, frankly.
It's pretty easy.
In my opinion. Speaking of coaching, the name, speaking of IU, the Lynch family, certainly people know that name in this area. Kevin Lynch, the son of Bill, heading to Butler, taking over there from Mike Uremovich. And Andy, one of my games of the year. I absolutely love watching it start to finish, and emphasis on the start and the CBS intro and emphasis on the finish of who sings last. It is Army-Navy tomorrow, and this is probably one of the better Army-Navy matchups we've gotten.
Yeah, sometimes we get some blowouts.
Combined win-wise, I think it's, 18 wins, 11 wins for Army. I want to say 7 or 8 for Navy, something like that. So should be a fun one there. Where are we? Are we MetLife? Are we Philly? Are we Baltimore?
It is in Landover, Maryland.
So that's
Commanders.
Stadium?
That's where the Commanders play, and it's 8-3 versus 11-1. So 19-4, your combined record for those teams. So
love it.
Good stuff. All right. So what about the other side? What about the Broncos? Mike Sanford, former college football coach, does radio there in Denver. How does he think this matchup looks like on the Denver side of things? We'll talk with him next, right here. It's a Friday on the Fan. NFL. We've talked about things a lot from the Colts viewpoint, obviously. Biggest game of the year coming up 4:25 there on CBS. Let's talk about it from the Denver Broncos side. And to do that, Mike Sanford joins us. Former coach, covered him a little, but he had his time there, Western Kentucky. And then, Coach, you went out west a little bit. You got yourself a media gig, Altitude Sports Radio, NBC 9 there in Denver. So good morning, Coach. How are you today?
I'm doing beautiful. It's I love the song, the intro music, great. Rocky Mountain High.
Yeah.
All we do out here is just wake up and start baking, man.
That's what I figured. Yeah,
standard operating procedure in these parts.
Yeah, I like it, and appreciate you joining us here on the Payless Liquors Hotline. What has the conversation been there? Obviously, here it's been, the percentages say if the Colts can win, they have more than a coin flip to make the postseason. If they don't, it's like 10%. So it's a huge game for us. Obviously, for the Broncos, it matters a lot as well, even though that schedule is difficult down the stretch. How have you guys talked about this one on Sunday?
Well, as big as you guys just said it was on the intro, it's 10 times bigger here in Denver. Certainly, at least that's how we look at it. And I think that's from the perspective of a 9-year playoff drought in an area, in a franchise that has been so successful. And so this is the opportunity to really face one of the people that are chasing you, and that's the Indianapolis Colts. I think the matchup itself is quirky. It's weird. Colts football is quirky and weird. You just kind of don't know what you're going to get. They don't, consistently and meticulously move the football, but they can create big plays, and I think that's a lot of the fear. One thing of note is this Broncos defense is for real. They've had some tough games here and there, but man, it went into the season as a bit of a no-name defense outside of Pat Surtain II. And there's some household names that have emerged, like Nick Bedito, certainly Jonathan Cooper, and they're playing really good football, especially in the fronts.
Again, he is Mike Sanford. He's got you covered out there in Denver, Morning Sprint, Altitude Sports, and does some work on NBC. And as a big-time Notre Dame fan myself, Mike, I appreciated your time there in South Bend. I want to go with the Anthony Richardson angle. I know obviously Baltimore was on the schedule, but Lamar Jackson really didn't do a lot of running in that blowout. Is that a question you think for Sunday at all in just trying to defensively match up against this Colts rushing attack, which certainly has had more focused with Richardson's legs in the last few weeks?
Yeah, I've noticed a few things from Vance Joseph, the defensive coordinator, who's in his second stint, his third stint in Denver here, is whenever there's a big outlier from a stylistic standpoint, he changes his defensive structure because, for example, Lamar Jackson, he was scared of the legs, so he didn't want to play a bunch of man coverage, and then Lamar Jackson's arm shredded him in that defense. And then against Jameis Winston, I think he was afraid of, the downfield throwing. He played a ton of zone and gave up an absolute massive amount of passing yards, almost 500. So if I'm Sean Payton and I'm advising my defensive coordinator, I'm saying do what got you to this point to be one of the best defenses in pro football and play a ton of tight press man coverage and blitz Anthony Richardson back to the Stone Age. And so I'm really curious to see what he does. The thought is that zone coverage is a better overall answer for a quarterback-driven run game, but I just still think create havoc for a rookie or second-year quarterback that's really kind of getting his first time as a consistent starter, and then all of a sudden I think you're going to be in business. So it's going to be a really interesting schematic and stylistic matchup between Vance Joseph and one of my old players that I coached when I was a GA at UNLV, Shane Steichen. And so, yeah, it'll be a lot of fun to watch.
Mike, I was actually going to go there next. I thought I might be a little too deep into the weeds, but I know there was some overlap in you as a GA, one of your early stints, and Shane Steichen as a player there. And I think the Norv-Turner connection of Norv hiring Shane in his first NFL stint came from the Turner family having representation on UNLV's team as well. So do you recall anything 2 decades ago about a Shane Steichen UNLV Rebel?
Well, the Steichen family and we go back to 2000. So his older brother, Sean, was my college roommate at Boise State when we were both playing quarterback. We were the same class. We were both scholarship quarterbacks. I'm not going to say exactly what happened, but let's just say that Sean Steichen got moved to punter, and I stayed at quarterback. So I might have won that head-to-head. But we stayed best friends. He was the best man at my wedding. And then Shane, Shane was he was a player at UNLV. Scott Turner, Norv's son, who's now coordinating on the interim basis at the Raiders. He was at UNLV as a quarterback as well. And then my dad had worked with Norv Turner at the Chargers and at USC back in the 70s. And so my dad ended up hiring Shane Steichen after he was done playing. He hired him as a graduate assistant at UNLV. And then when my dad was the offensive coordinator for Charlie Strong at Louisville, he brought Shane Steichen with him. And so my dad's two quality control guys and GAs, Sharon Moore was one of them, and Shane Steichen was the other one. It's pretty clear that I think the students became better than the teacher. So we have a very close relationship with that family.
Wow, that's a great story. I knew of some connections. I remember being in Louisville. I remember Sharon Moore a little bit more than Shane. Mike Sanford with us out there. Altitude Sports Radio joins us on the Payless Liquors hotline. Patrick Surtain, what do you think they'll do? Will he follow one of the receivers? Will it be Pittman maybe on one down and Alec Pierce on another? How do you think they'll play that?
Well, it'd be interesting. Thought it with Jerry Jeudy, and Vance Joseph didn't want to give any indication of zone or man. And so I think once Jerry Jeudy was motioning from, say, an outside receiver to slot, or from say one side to the other slot, I think Vance Joseph just said, I don't want to give away that it's man. And frankly, this team's not a good zone coverage team. So I say just throw caution to the wind, populate the box. Make Anthony Richardson's day very crowded in the run game, and then force him to get behind the sticks and run on third and extra long. Right now with Riley Moss, who's had a fantastic year opposite PS2, with him most likely out for this game, I think you'll see Chris Abrams-Drain of Missouri, a rookie that was drafted this past year, probably starting instead of Levi Wallace. Levi Wallace had an abysmal performance against the Browns, and so I think you're going to see a lot of man coverage. I think you will see Pittman followed a good chunk by Pat Surtain, but really been really good. Alec Pierce has been one fantastic player. So I'm looking forward to all the chess match pieces of it, and I'll be up there at 5,287 feet up there in the press box watching it all play out.
Great stuff here with Mike Sanford. Just one final one from me, Mike. Obviously, on your coaching resume, you were a member of that Stanford staff with Andrew Luck, and of course, he was in the news here in the last week or so with the news that he has become the GM, and kind of a different GM twist, it sounds like, over there at Stanford. What did you make of your former player taking on the GM at his alma mater?
Well, Andrew Luck's the smartest football person I've ever been around. And I say that having coached at Yale, Notre Dame, and Stanford. So I've been around some pretty powerful intellects, within the game of football. And what I'm hoping for is this college football landscape, which is wild, and, it's still a great product, but there's a lot of just issues with the regulation, the salaries, even on the player side, like you can get the rug pulled out of you as quickly as they give you that NIL endorsement, or the collective giving you that money. I think that Andrew Luck's going to have a lot of success at Stanford, and within 5 years, my prediction, you heard it here first, is that Andrew Luck will be the czar of college football. And I think he will be tasked with fixing, with his high-level background and his father, on the business side of sport. I think that he'll find solutions forward for the game of football to keep the product awesome, but also protect both the players and the coaches and programs.
Interesting. I like that idea.
I can see that.
Yeah, I'm nodding my head at a whole lot of that here. Mike, we can't thank you enough. We know it's early for you. Obviously, you got some ties here to this part of the country, so I think your name resonates to a lot of our audience, and great stuff with you. Thank you for the time, man.
No, I appreciate you. I'm a 3-time resident of the great state of Indiana, the Hoosier State. Started out it was Purdue when I was a youngster, about 4 or 5 years old. My dad was coaching at Purdue under Fred Akers, and then Notre Dame twice. My dad was there in 97, 98, and then I was there, of course, coaching in 15 and 16. And don't forget about my dad at Indiana State, the last playoff run that was made by the Sycamores. So we love the great state of Indiana. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Shout out to Terre Haute. Shout out to Coach Sanford. Mike, thank you.
Hey, I appreciate you, fellas.
It's Mike Sanford right there on the Payless Liquors hotline. Good stuff there.
Yeah, that's
Kinda
great
sprayed
stuff.
to a couple fields with them.
Yeah, very, very good stuff there. Again, you miss any of that, 1075thefan.com. Let's take a break. A Freebie Friday, 317-239-1070. We'll do it next. We'll wrap things up on this Football Friday.
An all Heisman Trophy pop quiz. I love this from Scotty here. Give us a call, 317-239-1070. All Heisman Trophy. We'll get to that here in just a minute. Andy Sweeney, I want to make sure we get to our popcorn hardest, easiest games to pick, Week 15. Give me your popcorn game.
Yeah, I have a feeling, are we going to have the same one, Bills-Lions? Isn't that the game?
I want to go Colts-Broncos, but I'm just trying to be a counter, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, that's not bad. I mean, Bills-Lions, the over-under is like 53.
It's a good 4 o'clock slate.
Yes, it is.
Steelers-Eagles.
It's a great 4 o'clock slate.
Packers-Seahawks, my easiest game. You know where I'm going.
All right, what's that? Go ahead.
It's my ritual. It's the biggest underdog in the NFL this season.
Okay.
Your Giants.
Okay, so whenever it's 16, so you're looking at that.
2 touchdowns plus, you automatically take the underdog. It sounds like the weather's going to be awful. I saw a stat yesterday. The Giants had 17 straight incompletions during their red zone drill.
Tommy DeVito's
at
going.
Practice yesterday.
Did they really?
So easiest game. I'm taking the Giants. 16 points.
I was actually thinking that would be mine as well. Yeah, the Giants are the worst offense. This is a game though. If you're the Ravens, you hand off and you win the game and you move on. Right.
You
hand off, you win the game, you move on.
The Giants are a lock to cover.
Yeah, you get out of town.
Lock to cover.
We'll have to save that sound, Corbin. They're a lock to cover. My hardest game to pick. It's a game we talked about earlier. It's Dolphins on the road at the Texans. The Dolphins don't have to worry about any weather. The Texans they're a mass unit. I mean, they are just so injured. And Houston's favored by 3. I actually could see Miami winning that game. What you got there? What's your hardest game to pick?
My hardest game to pick is the team that just seemingly finds a way to win in the 59th minute of every game. Chiefs.
Every time. It's 4, too.
They're a 4.5-point favorite against the Browns. All the Chiefs do is play one-possession games.
Yep.
And Jameis Winston, last week wasn't very good, right? So that means he bounces back.
That means he's due. It is every other game. He is due.
So, and again, 3, 4, I got a couple points to play with there. So that is my hardest game to pick. I could go both ways on that. Seemingly, you should pick the Chiefs, but you never know with old Jameis.
How are the Eagles favored by 6 against the Steelers? Is Pickens not playing again? I don't think he's practiced this week.
Is it in Philly?
It is in Philly.
Yeah.
But still, is that a lot of points?
Yeah, a little drama.
Are they touchdown better? I don't know. Maybe they are.
Brown and all of that. All right, give us a number 1 through 8 for our all Heisman Trophy pop quiz.
Let's go caller number 4 today, Corbin. How does that sound?
That sounds like Bruce.
Hello, Bruce.
Hello, how you doing?
Bruce, when you heard Heisman Trophy, did that get you excited?
I thought of you and Notre Dame.
Well, look at that.
I like that.
Thank you, Bruce. Bruce, are you rooting for Notre Dame a week from tonight?
No, got to root for the Hoosiers. They've been too long winning.
Well, Bruce, it's nice talking to you. I hope you have a good weekend. Bruce, your favorite IU Hoosier football player of all time?
Oh, I'm not from here, so I'd have to probably say Randall L.
Randall L. Scotty, did he crack the top 10 in Heisman voting ever?
I think so.
I thought he did.
Oh.
Gosh, what an unbelievable. I mean, that was one of my first memories, frankly, of football, period, is watching Randall L. I mean, you want to talk about it, just an incredible athletic specimen on the floor. Hell, on the basketball floor.
Yes.
I mean,
Maybe Anthony Thompson, too.
Sure, Anthony Thompson as well. All right.
He cracked the top 10.
Oh, yeah. Anthony Thompson, he was a runner-up, wasn't he? Yeah, thank you, Scotty. Runner-up on that. All right, so the theme for this quiz, Bruce, is as following. Tomorrow, again, we'll award the Heisman Trophy. It's likely to go to Travis Hunter, Ashton Genty from Boise State, Oregon's Dylan Gabriel, and Miami's Cam Ward are the other finalists. For today's quiz, Bruce, we'll give you a name, and you tell us if he won the Heisman Trophy or not, okay?
All right.
So just yes or no. Very easy. Andy Sweeney will start you off.
All right, maybe the most famous one. Number 1, Peyton Manning.
No.
Doug Flutie.
Yes.
Steve Spurrier.
Florida Gators with a great wide receiver. Yeah, I would say Spurrier. No, Spurrier, no. I think Ewert won that year, maybe.
Bruce, I had teachers back in the day that said, trust your first instinct.
All right, let's go Steve Spurrier with Florida.
Jim Brown.
No.
Bobby Lane.
Freight Train Lane. Wow. He was a great pro. I'd say no in college.
There you go.
Corbin, play the music, baby. That's a 5 for 5er.
Corbin wasn't ready for a 5 for 5er.
Oh,
yes, he was. Good job, Bruce.
Bruce,
good way to end the week.
Friday, 5 for 5er. Little hand holding on Steve Spurrier.
1966, Steve Spurrier won the Heisman Trophy. Absolutely. Jim Brown a no, Bobby Lane a no. Bobby Lane finishing 6th in 1947.
Jim Brown 5th.
Yes, he did.
And the finalists with Peyton Manning, it was Manning, Leaf, Randy Moss, and Charles Woodson.
We'll
right?
always remember. Charles Woodson got it.
Always remember Randy Moss's sunglasses.
You damn
front
right.
row.
Always the coolest guy, right?
Someone brought this up to me earlier in the week, and I think it's kind of interesting. Maybe we can get into it more next week, Andy. Just about how mediocre the 12 quarterbacks are in the college football playoff. Like, obviously, Dylan Gabriel's in it.
Right.
But, like, if you were going to list the next two best quarterbacks in college football this year, you'd easily go Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders.
Well, I mean, those would be the ones.
And they're not in it.
Yeah, and they're not in it.
Like, if you made a list of, again, Dylan Gabriel and Quinn Ewers and Riley Leonard and Curtis Rourke and, I guess Carson Beck's injured and, it's not like the star-studded, Drew Aller. I mean, I don't think we're talking about a lot of Heisman-worthy quarterbacks.
No.
I mean, still good players.
But Carson Beck has been, his stock went down just a little bit. I know Riley Leonard is
we had a
more
Final
of a runner.
Four a couple of years ago of Trevor Lawrence and Tua and Justin Fields and Joe Burrow.
Right.
First-round
draft picks.
Right.
Yeah.
That's not this year's group.
No, I'm totally with you. And I don't even know. Like, I like Dylan Gabriel. I don't know. Is he an NFL quarterback?
Right.
There's a report out there that Quinn Ewers, might come back to college. Some NIL money.
$4 million offer from a Big Ten school? Is that Big Ten school in Bloomington?
I mean, don't you? Well, that was going to be kind of my thinking was, let's go, Cignetti. Let's go. Got to win 10 games next year, right, Cignetti? Let's go. Need a quarterback.
So I'm trying to think. Ohio State obviously needs one. Gabriel's out of Oregon, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't know.
So he's done. So obviously we would think it would be. He's an Ohio kid, if you remember. So, all right, we're out of here. 107.5thefan.com. Everyone have a good day. Have a good weekend right here on The Fan.